Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Economy, Residents and Community Scrutiny Committee today, Monday, the 9th of September. Just for your information, we have Councillor Gwynfor Thomas with us this morning. He's the Chair of Learning Skills Scrutiny, and he's joining us today to look at our paper on home to school transport. So thank you, Councillor Gwynfor, for joining us. The first item on our agenda is apologies. So any apologies, Rachel?
Apologies from Councillor Chloe and Councillor Graham.
Lovely, thank you very much. Item 2, any disclosures of interest. So this is to receive any disclosures of interest by members relating to items to be considered in this meeting. So do we have any specific disclosures? I'll take silence to be no, so thank you all very much. Item 3 is the declaration of party whip. Scrutiny is supposed to be non-party political, but this is to receive any disclosures of prohibited party whip, which a member has been given in relation to a meeting in accordance with section 7(3) of the Local Government Measures 2011. Any disclosures? No. Lovely. So item 4 then is the minutes of the previous meeting, and that was on the 15th of July, pages 3 to 10 of our full pack. In this meeting, we looked at the customer service review and reports on broadband connectivity and the memorial safety policy and the asset management policy. We had a robust discussion, and the committee's comments are recorded there in the minutes. Does anybody have any comments or corrections or anything they want to say? Or are you happy with those minutes? Okay, again, we'll take silence to mean that the committee are happy with that, and we'll move on to the substantive items on the agenda today. Number 5 is a report from Freedom Leisure, their annual report, and that's pages 11 to 28 of our full pack. I think we have Jenny and Nina to take us through this pack, am I right?
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Yes, I have no specific comments on the report and would like to hand across to colleagues in Freedom Leisure, if that's okay, to take us through the report. So we have Jeremy Rowe, Richard Milne, and I think Gwyn Owen is joining us today as well.
Okay, lovely. Welcome. I can see Richard there with his camera on. Good morning, Richard and Jeremy. And
morning.
Sorry, Emma. Yeah. Over to you guys. Thank you very much.
Okay. Morning all. I'll just share my screen now.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
If that's okay.
Lovely. Yep, we can see that. Thank you, Richard.
Great. Okay. As we did last year, myself and Gwyn will present this report, and we'll take any questions at the end as we move through the report. I'll go through half and then pass over to Gwyn as we move through this annual report. So, yep, welcome all, and we're presenting our April 23 to March 24 report across the portfolio as we move through. Okay, so just to recap, we commenced the partnership in 2015, and 2023-24 was our 9th year of the partnership, and below is a summary of the sites that we operate across Powys. A comment there from our Chief Executive Officer, Ivan, just in terms of the position for 23-24, and we saw record levels of participation, customer service satisfaction in the service across the partnership, across Powys County Council. Ivan's immensely proud of the staff team that delivered these results and can continue to work on our core mission of improving lives through leisure. And then just to follow Ivan's comments there, he's continued to say, whilst we anticipate 2024-25 being challenging, exploring the future shape of the leisure services throughout Sustainable Powys programme, we're committed and confident with our colleagues, team and Powys will continue to deliver the best of their ability. So just an overview from our Chief Executive Officer in terms of the performance across Powys, in terms of the year ahead and what we're faced with in terms of performance. And then just a recap of where we are as a company in terms of our group position. Last year, we've increased our portfolio. We now operate across 129 leisure and cultural facilities, and we work with 31 individual clients and now have over 5,000 employees across the group. And then just an overview of our ethos and missions and values that we work to across our centres and teams as a group there. So I won't read them out, but you can see where we focus ourselves on and our core values. Okay, and then our financial summary for the year. We came above our income against our bid position of 8.4 million against the 7.1 million bid position. Our expenditure was higher, 7.7 million against a bid position of 7.1. And we generated a surplus of 746,000 for the year. Overall, it's a positive surplus for the year. And the report, as we all show now, heavily driven on income, which replicates in the figures that I'm going to present now in terms of participation, membership growth, and access across all the centres increased last year, which has helped drive our income position. Expenditure is higher than the bid position, still being heavily driven by the energy costs in terms of our bid position and where we were, and some additional training that's gone into that year, and overall expenditure at sites in terms of repair and maintenance, but giving us a surplus position of 746,000 for the year. And then just some numbers, key numbers for us. Compared to 22-23, we've seen a 3.4% increase in total participation, with active participation increasing by nearly 1%. And then you can a breakdown there of our total centre participation for the year, nearly 1.9 million people coming in and participating in all forms of activity, and total active participation 1.5 million. So some really good strong figures there and increases on previous year in terms of our usage of centres. And then just to touch on our aquatic numbers, so casual swim has seen a growth of 3.1% compared to previous year, and our Learn to Swim programme remains strong, with over 5,200 children attending weekly our Learn to Swim programmes across the 12 pools. So you can see our casual swim visits, 261,000, and our swim school as of March this year at 5,282 enrolled. And then just a bit more on our programming, just some key numbers for us there. Can see consistent growth and uplift across our programme. 5,753 members of March 2024. Group exercise visits 115,000 and gym visits 150,000 for the year across all centres. Okay. And then we move on to our customer service satisfaction measure that we use, which is NPS, a Net Promoter Score. And just to give you an overview of this, if you're unfamiliar with NPS, it's a national, worldwide group satisfaction survey that's completed across customer bases. And it's quite simple, is we'll go out to all our users and ask them how likely they are to recommend your local Freedom Leisure centre or sport facilities to friends and family. Your scores can range from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, and then you'll get an average score across the area, with going up to 100 as a positive and then minus 100 the other way around, depending on your scores that received. So we scored a 51 as a score, as a percentage score, which identifies a high degree of satisfaction across the sites. The national average for NPS score at the time was 29 when we ran, and Freedom Leisure as a group NPS average score was 19. So we were way above that across Powys in terms of our customer satisfaction. November 23, we scored 52, and in February, we scored 51 as an average across the group. All customers that we received a comment back from and a score were contacted, and thanked them for the feedback, and any comments that needed addressing were addressed at site level with the customer and how we receive that. And we will continue to do that this year and continue our surveys to gain that feedback measure. Don't know if Gwyn is with us.
Yeah, I am, Rich.
Hi, Gwyn. Do you want to continue now with the energy and sustainability?
Yeah, sure. Great. Thank you, Rich.
Gwyn.
And good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Gwyn. Thank you for joining us.
I don't know if you can see me quite clearly, but I am here.
You're behind a sort of fog of green, but yes, we can just about see you.
I don't know if it's a good look. So thanks, Rich. And on to energy and sustainability. And yes, the energy in 23-24 has really shown a strong performance. So 8.7% decrease in electricity consumption compared to the previous year, and also a 9.6% decrease in gas consumption compared to the previous year as well. So a significant amount of work that's gone in last year, and actually typical of the last 4 to 5 years. We've replaced under the great partnership with Powys County Council, Sport Wales, working closely with Jenny Ashton's team, Neil Clutton's team, and Martin Price, really key to the success. We've replaced mechanical plant, electrical plant, investing in LED lighting schemes. And, sites are now regularly monitoring. It is good housekeeping that has delivered this success. We have introduced, and I think we've mentioned this on our previous meeting, our 26-point non-negotiable actions on energy. And again, basic steps that sites, individuals must adopt on a day, weekly, and monthly basis. And so that success really put us to the fore when we attended the 23-24 Swim Wales Awards back in January of this year. And we came away with the Swim Wales Sustainability Initiative Awards. We were really chuffed to receive that. And again, it's based upon our commitment to protect the environment with a range of innovative measures, to reduce energy consumption, resulting in a massive energy saving across all 13 sites in Wales. And this is replicated with our partners in Swansea and Wrexham as well. And across Wales, we saved approximately 607 tonnes of CO2 emissions last year, and Powys contributed 219 reductions of CO2 emissions last year. So the tables below there just on electricity and gas show you from 21-22 the great advances we've done on energy consumption. That really remains, a top priority for us going forward. And, we really hope to build upon the great work we've done to date. So to that end, we've submitted additional application forms now to Sport Wales for their capital funding programme, which will be heavily geared about energy reduction, sustainability. So again, great partnership with Jenny's team, Neil Clutton's team, Gareth Richards, us in Freedom Leisure, to see what we get. We got through to stage 2, and we expect to hear now any day the outcome of those bids for this year. And what we've gone for some LED replacement schemes again, and also additional solar panels, which we're looking to get at Ystrad down in the south, and I can't remember the site in the north, Rich, we're going to go for as well.
Maldwyn.
Maldwyn, was it? Great. So on to health and safety. So we use Stitch, the national database resource for this, along with a majority of companies throughout the United Kingdom. And so looking through at 23-24, there were a total of 220 accidents in Paris, and that represents 0.02% of total usage, so quite minimal. None of these accidents were reportable under RIDDOR. So the table there gives you the Paris total accidents of 220, Wales and the North region of 1,987, and Freedom Leisure as a whole, a total of 6,197. And then on the right-hand side, the sites are listed with their total accidents as well. And on to our colleagues. And yeah, absolutely, our teams across Paris are, really great and, so key to delivering the very best of customer services to our communities across Paris. And just a snapshot here of what we've been doing with our colleagues over the last year. So we held a leadership conference in Oxfordshire in March this year, 2-day event to gather all our leaders together, managers together to reflect on performance, share good practice, and look at the year ahead. And but also a time, as I said, to reflect on what has been successful. So there was an awards evening, and I'm pleased to say that Paris came away with 3 awards. And so Brecon winning Regional Centre of the Year, and Brecon also won Regional Membership Growth of the Year. And then Paris area also won Most Improved Area. That does sound, Paris wasn't very good the year before, but actually last year was such a strong performance, it really stood out across the organisation as a whole. We continue to invest in training, development and upskilling, so important that we invest back in our teams. And we've continued with that across last year, absolutely, with NPLQ, lifeguard training, our upskilling of swim teachers of level 1 and level 2, really, really important. That has delivered those strong figures, as Richard mentioned earlier, in the Learn to Swim programme. Clearly working closely with Swim Wales and, building even greater relationships with Swim Wales, that we have recently become their accredited provider in Wales, which is a great badge to high standard of performance of our Learn to Swim programme. Pool plant operating and first aid, and of course health and safety is equally important, and our IHASCO training database, again a national database that we adopt to upskill and deliver key training to our teams. Our Freedom Choices continues to be popular across all our sites in Paris. This is an employee scheme whereby colleagues can take advantage of some truly great travel discounts, shopping and coffee shop discounts from national brands. And we've recently enhanced that with the addition of My Staff Shop offer, which again enables us to give rewards and provides greater access to a range of offers from national providers. And yeah, towards the end of 23-24, we undertook a pay review. And so with effect from April the 1st this year, we moved to the new national minimum wage set by government. And this equated to about a 9.8% increase. And also we issued a 3.5% pay award to all other employees. This was in addition to the 5% pay award we'd given in October last year. So nurse, and this is our GP referral delivery across Paris, and just some statistics there showing what was done in 23-24. Over 1,400 referrals, over 800 consultations, 11,600 attendances. NERS and the GP referral program in Paris is stronger than ever. Well over 100 referrals now coming in every month. We deliver the GP referral scheme across 7 sites in Powys. So that's the Flash in Welshpool, Maldwyn, Newtown, Rotherby, Machynlleth, Rheda, Knighton, Brecon, and Ystrad-Gynllais. And so just some quotes there from the customers and participants that have been on that scheme. And then those figures, excuse me, in further detail. So in the box, a summary of the annual figures compared to the previous year, and all showing a significant increase in referrals, consultations, attendances, and those who complete the scheme as well. That's so important that people stay with the scheme. And once they finish the 16-week program, they move into generic general exercise with us at our leisure centres, and that's so important. So in 23-24, we had 66% of female participants, 34% male, 59% were coming through on the general GP referral scheme, but 41% coming on those higher levels, those more important pathways that's dealing with cancer, obesity, mental health, pulmonary, key work there for those higher levels delivered across all 7 sites. And then the little summary there on the right-hand side of what improvements that has made to people's lives. And on the left-hand side, the question, would you have participated in exercise if NERS was not available? And there's a strong 97% saying no. So again, we're bringing people who had not traditionally set foot inside a leisure centre and a sports centre. And it's great that this scheme, along with our colleagues across Powys, Public Health Wales, Welsh Local Government Association, are really having an impact across all Powys communities. Marketing, really strong across Powys, and our social media is stronger than ever. We're finding people are really wanting to interact with us. Everybody expects something on a phone, on a device, on a tablet, and it's key to our marketing strategy. And over 40,000 have followed or liked our social media pages in the last year. Traditional press coverage equally is important as well. And we actively engage with the press to publish news stories to a wider audience across Wales and across Powys, and clearly working with Powys County Council comms team, Powys Health Board as well. So some examples that have been Freedom Leisure's Welsh leisure centres make huge strides towards greater energy efficiency. So we really wanted to get that message out there. Swim Wales finalists for awards, the Swim Wales Award winners reporting itself. Our introduction of Welsh speaking swimming lessons across key sites in Powys has been so important to us as well. New pitches, recently installed at Ystrad-Gynllais, also at Llanfair Cerenion, and Drowning Prevention Week, where we join national campaigns and shout out the importance of learning to swim, the dangers of water, and where we can work with communities to deliver great training and awareness across Powys. And sorry, just back up to the top of that page, website and customer communication. So our websites continue to increase with over 94,000 pages viewed in August 24. And that's compared to 61,000 in August of last year. So a 53% increase, August this year to August last year. And the Freedom Leisure app across many of our sites, now we've got the Freedom app for users. Non-members and members can view news, up-to-date timetables, and receive notifications. And as of August this year, we have a total of 8,800 combined Welsh and English users. So we really want to build upon that going forward as well. And again, people expect this to be readily at hand at a press of a button. So developments and yeah, you know, an extensive portfolio of 13 sites. And we've done some significant work, again, in conjunction with Jenny Ashton's team, Neil Clutton's team, Sport Wales, and key partners. So remedial maintenance works that are funded from the Powys County Council Remedial Backlog Fund were actioned last year, and also some additional capital funding that we've been able to secure that we work through and plan through along with Jenny Ashton and her team. So a sample of these works are below. So at Gunlice, we had significant roof replacement works completed, pool retiling at areas of the swimming pool at Gunlice, and the outdoor pitch at Gunlice has now completed. That started last year and has recently been completed. Bilth Wells, solar panels were installed, and replacement of boilers and hot water clarifier upgraded as well. Llanfair Coranion, new pitch. Knighton filter media replaced, and repairs to the roof at Knighton. East Radnor, critical works, the squash courts there. Maldwyn, poolside lighting upgrade, and also some roofing works at Maldwyn as well. Flash, a significant poolside LED scheme put in along with the sports hall as well. Llanidloes, sports hall lighting upgraded. Interreda, again, solar panels installed and an LED lighting scheme within the site. Brecon, works are started for the outdoor pitch here at Brecon, and I think were all completed last week and the pitch back open, which is great. And significant works to the athletics track and changing pavilions here at Brecon as well. The installation of new boilers, a significant project there, and great work from Martin Price and his team, and Neil Clutton's team on that. That's really transformed the plant there for Brotherby. And at Llanfachin, a BMS upgrade, building management system upgrade at Llanfachin too. And as I said, we work closely with Sport Wales, and in 23-24, we secured projects totaling 286.8 thousand. So that was a combination of Sport Wales funding, Powys County Council capital funding, and then working as a team across Freedom and those partners in delivering these projects. So just to summarize, solar panels installed at Reda, solar panels at Bilth Wells last year, and also the installation of destratification fans at 10 of our sites, which are basically fans that sit in pool roofs and basically pushing that hot air down for the pool hall roofs down onto the pool walk around surround itself. So which enables us to drop our boiler set points without affecting the temperature of the pool areas you walk around. So that, I believe, concludes our report. And but yeah, Rich and I are more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Richard and Gwyn, for taking us through that presentation. So I'll open up to members first of all, if you have any questions based on that. There we are. Councillor Carl, first question.
Thank you, Chair. There was mention of Ustrad and Maldwyn having solar panels, and Reda and Bilth have already got them. Are there intentions on upgrading other sports centres?
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Carr. You know, we take a approach in discussion with Neil Clutton's team, Jenny Ashton's team, and looking where we can get the most gains most quickly, the most effectively, and absolutely looking at the structure of the buildings as well. And not all buildings would be compatible to take solar. So there has to be some survey work that goes on as well. So that is certainly our plan for 24-25. And going forward, it is indeed to look at other sites.
Yeah, I rebut the claim that you can't put them on all buildings. I'm electrical engineer myself, and I do solar, and I can't think of a building I couldn't put solar panels on. The BMS, is that going to be upgraded in all properties you
Yes.
currently manage, or is it just in a select few?
No, they've all been upgraded, I think, in the last 6 years, actually. We have upgraded all BMSs in all sites, certainly 90% of the sites.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thanks a lot. Oh, one other thing. Are you in a contract with an energy company at the moment for your electricity? And if so, when does that run out?
Yeah, so we have gone into a flexi deal for gas, and we are with a fixed supply on energy, electricity. Now, I believe those are coming to an end shortly, and so our broker and our sustainability energy teams are working closely with them now, and we'll take advice as to when they should be renewed. I don't have any specific detail other than that, unless colleagues from Freedom on the call might have.
Okay, so just going back to solar, do you have a date of when your next batch of sports centres are going to be having their solar arrays installed?
So we are waiting the Sport Wales decision on the current bid.
Yeah.
So our plan is to deliver that, get that installed, and that will complete by March 25. We then will review, we will see what other funding comes from either Sport Wales, collaborative funding from Welsh Government, perhaps County Council and other partners, and map our way forward based on that, really.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Carl. Councillor Gary's next.
Thanks for the presentation. It's great to see effectively the leisure centres and the partnership in a good state of play in terms of usage and increases across the board, really. I guess my figures are around some bit of devil of the detail in some of the figures, perhaps. Go through them a bit randomly, perhaps, but the customer feedback one might be useful for us just to know how many customers you manage to actually engage with across the Powys estate rather than just a percentage. It's great to see that percentage and how they score the services, but I don't know if that's coming from 2 people or 1,000, I guess, Gwyn.
Yeah, I've just got some notes in front of me. So I think we had a total of just over 300 responses from what I can see. 23%, 69 were detractors, 78 representing 26% were passive, and 149, 50% were promoting a result and giving us that strong figure. So which was what, 51%. So
great.
Yeah.
I think it might be helpful in future reports if you just put that the numbers in there, just because we often question how much we're managing to engage with customers.
Yeah,
that'd be useful.
Yeah. Councillor Gary, if you look on page 8 of the Freedom Leisure report, which is page 18 of our full pack, the numbers are actually in there.
Oh, were they? Sorry,
Yeah,
I missed those because I was looking for them. Sorry. No, that's great to be pulled up.
It perhaps isn't quite written clearly, but the numbers are there. 69 detractors, 78 passive.
Yeah,
and
no, I saw the figures
149.
in terms of those, but yeah, I guess I could have then hurried them up, but I thought those were percentages of the respondents. But what I couldn't see is that 300 people responded. Okay, and Carl's point actually is quite valid. I think what we could be showing is actually what are you generating in terms of energy, because your figures on the energy consumption are there and clear, the reductions seen on gas, electricity, but I can't see anywhere what you're managing to produce across the estate. And it'd be lovely to see that increase over the years and see those figures perhaps presented to us. And then one, obviously, it's great to see a surplus there in your presentation as well, which is fantastic. For me, it's always useful to be able to see back perhaps 2 years. I know obviously COVID starts to get in the way beyond there, but comparison against a couple of years previously, and then almost when do you start to share the figures for the future year as well, are of interest to me. And my final point on figures perhaps is we assume as councillors that surplus figure gets reinvested across the estate in Powys. Good to get that confirmed. And then perhaps if you've got any ideas of where you're targeting that reinvestment at this point, other than some of the stuff you've already mentioned.
Yeah, I'll come in, Gwen, if you on this one, Councillor Gary. In terms of trading back to 2015, we have got that, and we can present that in future reports, so you can see that surplus position year on year. 23-24 was the first year since we commenced in 15 where we made a positive surplus. Previous years we've had a deficit. So since contract started, we're showing a 1.1 million deficit year to date up to 23-24. So where we've seen a positive last year, all the other years we've seen a negative surplus finish for the year. But as a positive now, we're starting to see that come the other way now, and you can see the numbers of increasing and membership growth is increasing, and that's supporting that figure. But yeah, happy to show that in further reports, that history from 2015 all the way to current now. And where we do, we reinvest across the estate in terms of that investment back in. But as year to date on the contract from 2015, we are in a deficit of 1.1 million across the group.
Okay, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Gary. Thank you, Richard. Next is Councillor Rafe Devlin. Rafe.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Richard and Gwyn, for delivering the report. I think you've clearly shown how well leisure in Powys is doing in delivering such an essential service for our residents. I think an additional measure, though, that I think the local authority will benefit from is to know how many people are using each leisure centre, because you've got the participation figures, which speak for themselves, but they're total usage figures. So they and correct me if I'm wrong, but they count people more than once. That's the total number of visits. But
Yeah.
I think what would help us as members is to know exactly how many people are using each of the leisure centres in a given period, because then we'd be able to tell how well a leisure centre is used compared to the size of the community that facility sits within. So I think if we could have that would be really beneficial. Thanks.
Okay. Are you able to provide that, Richard?
Yeah, we are. We are,
Lovely.
and we can do them as part of our monthly portfolio updates in terms of our centre usage breakdown per centre. So yeah, we can provide them.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Councillor Chloe.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, again, thank you for the presentation. It's great to see those numbers and to feel like these leisure centres are being really well used. I think kind of linked really to Councillor Rafe's point there is I'd like to understand a bit better about the percentage of the population that's using them. So the purpose of the leisure centres is to be available for everybody to have healthy, active lifestyles, in my view. And it would be great to be able to say X percentage of our population is using them and just see where we're missing it and where perhaps it would be good to target some additional marketing around enabling more access from different groups to the leisure centres. And so, sorry, but it would be great to have that sort of information for future ones, unless perhaps if you've already got it, it would be lovely to hear that as well.
Yeah, I think coming on that, Councillor, in terms of breakdown, we have got that. It's just quite a lot of information to present in an annual report, but we have got the split from male to female, and then the age categories in terms of people, members are with us, and what that looks like across Powys. So we have got all that detail, and we can put that together and share that further.
I think the main thing I'm interested in is sort of what percentage of Powys population are accessing leisure centres on a regular basis. Obviously, it doesn't tell us everybody who's being active, but it gives us a good idea of perhaps areas that are struggling to access these sort of facilities. So yeah, but that's great. Sounds like you've got sort of information.
Yep, we have. We can put that
Lovely.
together. Okay,
thank you, Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Chair. And again, thank you for the report. I'm just interested in water usage and how the increase of shower usage and the charges of water. I mean, is that sort of up on costs?
Yeah, again, Councillor Peter, we've done significant investment in shower replacement across all our sites. Specific performance measures on that, I don't have off the top of my head. I'm just looking at utilities for the previous year. And yeah, water costs, were up by about 7,700 on the previous year. But again, I can assure you that when we do works to our changing rooms, we are putting, showers that are very efficient, that are using minimal water. So it's not only the use of that water, the disposal of that water is also key as well. But in terms of the detail we've given on gas and electricity, I guess perhaps, yeah, we could perhaps reflect that on water as well, and give some detail on that on future reporting.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Sure.
Lovely, thank you all. So I've just got a couple of questions, if that's all right, sort of following on from what's already been said. On page 5 of your report, which is 15 of our full pack, the active participation increase, and you've said you're very pleased with the increase, but I'm just wondering, do you benchmark? You run leisure facilities in other areas of the UK, so how does the increase across Powys compare to other areas? So there is an increase, but is it good? Do you have that sort of figure?
If I come in there from a benchmarking point of view, yeah, we benchmark sort of internally across Wales, across the whole portfolio. That is a good increase. Obviously coming back from challenges really in the sort of environment and sector over the few years. There's been a steady build up, and that's gone well in Powys and the Welsh contracts in particular, really. So we benchmark through our sector and through our sort of community leisure as well, UK partners. Okay, excellent. Oh, that's good news then. So even compared to others, you're still happy with those increases. That's good to hear. Yeah. And on page 14, which is again 24 of our large pack, where we talk about the average scores, and it's around 50%, 51, 52. That doesn't seem great to me. So I'm curious, you've said that you do contact everybody who responds, and the 25%, is it, or 28% detractors. What sort of things are they unhappy with?
Well, I've got some examples in front of me, Councillor Angela, and a lot of the time it can be about price. It can be they want greater opening hours. They want newer facilities, refurbished facilities, and it's interesting when we speak to visitors from away who come into Powys. They think, "My God, what a wonderful leisure centre!" Which wherever you are in Powys, there is. You can see the investment, you can see the work, and I think what always comes out in these surveys is the team and the staff at site, and the friendliness and the welcome. But yes, it's also important to capture what aren't people happy about. It tends to be about, we want longer hours, we want greater investment. Price clearly does come out as well, certainly this year more than ever. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So that leads me on to my next one, page 14 of your report, where the marketing. So a lot of your marketing is directed to your own customers, whether that be through your social media, so it's your followers, or the website, so again, it's people looking for you. But I'm just wondering, the marketing in the press is really about specific things rather than the activities of each centre. Do you think you could do more in each locality? I know in my area, there are people who probably have no idea what goes on in the leisure centre. And I think there may be some missed opportunities there to promote each centre in its locality, particularly, as I say, my area, high tourism area. I'm sure there are a lot of people who come to the town that don't even realise that's a leisure centre. So is that something you've ever considered doing, sort of external on a local level? I know it's perhaps more challenging, but... Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's finding that balance, isn't it? It's getting us out there as often as we can. But you're right, a huge number of visitors, tourists to Powys and Mid Wales, and you could quite easily drive past Rhaeadr Leisure Centre and not realise it's there. Yeah. I'm sure that's true about those as well. We do work with groups across Powys. We are getting involved through our work in the communities, and our community work is becoming increasingly important. So yeah, you know, whatever ideas your colleagues may have, absolutely. If you think there's an opportunity that we're missing, then yeah, you know, quite happy to explore that further.
Lovely, thank you. I'll stop there because we've got two more hands up. So we've got Councillor Gary and Councillor Gwynfor. So Gary, will come to you, and then perhaps we'll finish with Gwynfor as he's our guest here today. Thank you. So gentlemen, Gary.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was just a reflection really on the figures of the sort of the importance of the poolside activities that you deliver, looking at your memberships, 5,700 sort of individual full members across the estate, but an additional 5,200 in that Learn to Swim enrolment scheme. So I'm just sort of reaffirming how important that element of the leisure centres are for all our youngsters and that sort of life skill that they bring. And then in addition, gosh, 250,000 plus in casual swims alone as well. Phenomenal element of the leisure centre sort of portfolio. So yeah, just wanted to sort of really reaffirm that rather than ask a direct question. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Councillor Gwynfor has, oh no, he's back with us. Sorry, Gwynfor there. So if you'd like to come in there, Councillor Gwynfor,
no,
we welcome your
sorry,
questions.
Sorry, Chair, I'm not really sure you want me to ask a question at this point, but I'm fascinated by the relationship between the leisure centres and our schools, but we'll leave that for another day, because at the time Zoom was continually throwing me in and out. I was just wanted to clarify for the accuracy of information, and again, apologise if I got it wrong. Gwyn stated that Corinion had a new leisure pitch. I was at a visit to Corinion the other day, and I'm not aware that anything has been built there. So I was just clarifying that for the accuracy of information. I'm not aware that Corinion's had a new pitch. So if you could just clarify that, or is there one in the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I can come in on that, Gwyn. Yeah, it was it's a resurface of the red grass at the top. So it's not maybe a
okay, so you actually said at the time it was a new pitch. No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
New laid pitch, but on the existing old pitch.
Great stuff. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Councillor Gwynfor, if you wanted to make comment on the school's use of the leisure centres, I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm not quite totally prepared for that, but obviously it has prompted me. I've taken the presentation on board today, and I think that's something which we'll take to the committee. Take that information to the committee for them to raise the points. I don't think it's right for me as an individual to do that. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Gwynfor. Okay, we got one more hand, and it did say we'd finish with Gwynfor, but Councillor Carl, please come, bring your question.
Thank you, Chair. It's not
to bring this matter to.
It's not a question. It's just an observation while we were talking. I downloaded the app, and it's really good.
Yes. Well, on that matter, I will just tell you, gentlemen, the app is excellent. I agree with Councillor Carl, but it doesn't always work. That may be other issues, but anyway. But yes, I agree. It is excellent. Okay, I'm going to bring this item to a close now. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Richard, Gwyn and Jeremy, thank you very much for answering our questions. And that overall is a very, very positive report for Freedom Leisure in Powys. And I'm sure we're looking forward to see continued growth in that area. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. So, gentlemen, I mean, you're welcome to stay, but I'm sure you've probably got busy lives, so we understand if you would rather leave us at this point, but that's entirely up to yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda, item 6, is the Home to School Transport draft policy, and we're on pages 29 to 50 of the full pack. So we've got a few officers here. So who is choosing to take this forward for us?
I think John's asked me to present the PowerPoint presentation. So if you just bear with me a moment, I'll just try and share that on the screen, if that's all right.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Sarah.
I think it's important to note that while Sarah's getting the presentation up, this is more of an update session for members. We're still actually in the consultation process in the school transport policy, but we felt it was been opportune time to sort of provide some feedback on where we are currently with the responses we've had to date.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, Sarah, over to you. We can see your screen.
Lovely. I was going to ask that. I do apologise. The Zoom did drop me out a few minutes ago and just did it very suddenly. So hopefully I'll be able to get through this presentation in full. Okay, so we're in a position at the moment where we want to introduce the introduction of catchment maps in the 2025-26 admissions. We were asked to try and align the transport policy to ensure that it matches the catchments that school service have implemented. We also wanted to try and remove some of the ambiguity around that alignment between the admissions and transport. This draft report is based on 75 respondents to date. That's gone up since the end of last week. And just to note that the consultation remains open until the 12th of September. So it hasn't actually closed yet. The consultation is still open. But our findings currently, we asked a number of questions. So I'm just going to go through those questions and the key points that people have made to date. So in question 1, we removed reference to nearest suitable school because this has been causing us a number of problems where people consider that the suitability of the school is down to the education rather than actually where it is.
The location,
so
yeah.
Using just catchment school hopefully will clarify that. And to date, the number of respondents, 54% of those answering that question either agreed or partially agreed to that change and the ease of understanding. There were some concerns about the fairness of requiring children to travel long distances when parents perceive there might be a school that's closer than the catchment school. There is also some belief that parents should bear the cost of taking their child to a school other than their catchment school. Parents also felt with this question that transport should be provided to the nearest school that meets the child's language needs, which I think further down the line in this presentation, we'll see that 1 or 2 parents do feel that they should be given the option of either English or Welsh medium education. So there was a call for sort of equitable choice for language for parents when it comes to meeting their children's needs. The qualifying distance criteria, there was a slight drop. It shows for me that parents don't fully understand when it comes to the qualifying criteria in section 1.2. I think they find it a little bit confusing, and there's some misunderstanding regarding the walking distance. So in terms of the Learner Travel Wales measure, it's very clear that if you are under 3 miles distance from your nearest secondary school or 2 miles for primary school, then there is an expectation that we will undertake a measurement and actually review whether that route is suitable for you to walk or not. Now, in many instances, parents assume that if they're under that distance criteria, they will be expected to walk, and that's not what the policy is intending to say. So it may be that we just need to add a little bit of clarity around that particular point. In terms of closures of a school or school reorganisation, again, more than 50% of people currently agree, find that how we've changed the wording makes it easier to understand. However, some people still feel that there are some concerns about the ambiguity of policies, especially regarding transportation to English language schools if a Welsh language school is closed. So we may need to add a little bit of clarity there as to precisely what is meant. Parents felt that they should be informed as soon as changes to schools are confirmed, not when they're implemented. So again, that's an education perspective rather than actually whether or not somebody's entitled to receive transport to their alternative school and when we would apply that. Assessing hazardous routes. So again, over 50% so far agree that the response, where we've said that until such time as a route is assessed, the responsibility for getting the child to and from school remains that of the parent. Some there was some reference to the policy where we use the words may provide transport rather than will provide if the route is deemed hazardous. I think part of the reason why we say may provide is down to the fact that if there is not transport available, then we may ask a parent to convey their child and may pay them to do so until such time as we have transport available. So we just need to be careful that we don't put ourselves into a position where we have to provide something that we might not be able to achieve at that moment in time. But overall, I think people's understanding of their responsibilities was quite clear in this question. Welsh language. So this was very much closer in terms of those people who felt that we were offering sufficient discretion against whether or not the policy should be changed. I've made a slight adjustment here because I think in the documents that you received, it said 52% agree or slightly agree, but in fact the number is 42%. So it's very close, but equally, and those not disagreeing or not wanting to comment, have a comment either way, is quite high as well. So this one I think is very, very close in terms of whether or not we offer enough discretion in terms of the Welsh language. There were some concerns raised by those who felt that we weren't offering sufficient discretion, saying that there were concerns about the policy being discriminatory against English language pupils. Also that there was some people felt that there should be more support for providing transport to students attending Welsh medium secondary schools, but concerns about it being a cost-saving exercise that we would reducing the number of schools that were available. But again, that's not really a transport matter. Many of the comments are to do with education rather than actual transport itself. There were some feelings that there should be more parental right in terms of choice of school, so that they should be able to make a choice as to whether or not they want their child taught through the medium of Welsh or whether they would like their child taught through the medium of English, and should have equal access to education. Transport for 16 to 19 learners. Again, over 50% of people agreed so far that this is helpful to have in the policy, that we will provide a bursary for students who don't have access to the education that they require in county. There was a question about whether or not there's a list of subjects that qualify for out-of-county transport, and that's very difficult for us because it depends upon the mix of subjects that a student wants to study. So it may be that when we look at that across what's available in their local school or what's available in a Powys college, that actually when we look at all the subjects that they're choosing, it may well be that out-of-county suits their needs better than being in a local school. So it's very difficult to provide information as to exactly what's available and what qualifies for out-of-county transport. Okay. So those who do not meet the qualifying distance criteria, we took out reference to specific legislation which we felt might be confusing for parents. So the policy was generally seen to be clear but inappropriate, with concerns about its impact on parents' employability if transportation agreements are withdrawn without reasonable notice. So where we say that whilst a seat is available for a student, that they can use it, once it becomes unavailable, then it would remain the parents' responsibility to get their child to and from school. So I think there was some concern that we need to give more notice if we're going to remove a seat from a child. So we might need to consider that. In terms about why parents cannot pay for seats to a school other than their catchment school, that's been raised a number of times. I think a lot of parents would like to see that they have a choice of school, and then if there's transport available, they can use that transport. That becomes quite challenging for us if a seat becomes unavailable, because the further the distance and the older the student, the more difficult it is for us not to offer that or continue to offer that seat free of charge. I mean, obviously we can't charge for seats anyway at the moment, but we do have to be careful about our policy position in terms of the distance that we're prepared to convey students that may not be entitled to that school. We asked a supplementary question in terms of changes, whether or not changes needed to be made to the home to school transport policy moving forward when we have the dedicated Welsh medium provision. So, and these were the key points that that parents made. They emphasise the need for policies that support parental choice, regardless of the language. That seems to be a fundamental one for a lot of families in terms of the responses that we're getting. So these the opinions above highlight the complexities and diverse perspectives we think involved in shaping educational policies, and in addition how they often conflate eligibility to transport with perceived quality of education. We do get a lot of challenge around the quality of education rather than it being specifically around transportation. In terms of a summary of the key points, these are presented to you. From my perspective, I feel that what we need from this policy, once it's approved, or if it is approved, is certainly an easy read version of the policy. It comes across quite strongly that some people find the language in the policy a little bit confusing to understand. There is some misunderstanding, safety and practicality, for example, highlighting the dangers of walking on unsafe roads. That to some extent is misinterpretation of the policy by those who are reading it. So we can clarify some of those points, but I think for me, the easy read version of the policy is required. There is a section that was missing. One of the questions that we have asked is around the introduction of bus passes into the policy. And I'm pleased to say that over 74% returned a positive response to that, saying that they feel that the addition of bus passes in the policy is a good thing. So as I say, this is only where we are to date with the comments that parents have made. And obviously we won't be closing that consultation until this Thursday, I think the 12th of September. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or if John wants to add anything.
John, anything to add before we open up to questions?
No, I just think it's relatively comforting to see that the majority of the respondents to date seem to be on board with what we're trying to do, which is to simplify the policy language. And I completely agree with Sarah that it's something that the Welsh Government do really well, is have easy read documents of complicated policies, and I'd be quite keen to try and progress that as well. So yeah, over to you, Chair.
Okay, lovely. I mean, I do appreciate it's always difficult, isn't it, to write a policy, because as soon as you try and put things in black and white, there's always going to be grey areas. But I was reminded at a meeting recently that policies are guidelines, not tramlines. So I think we should take it as read that there will always be some areas that need a bit of flexibility. Right, panel, open to you. Questions? Councillor Rafe, first off the block, sir. Thank you very much. Your questions?
Thank you, Chair, and Sarah, thank you very much for the presentation. That was really informative. Thank you. Just a couple of queries, just from my personal understanding, really. So, firstly, I think the easy read version, absolutely supportive of that. That's done really well in Welsh Government, as John said, and it works superbly even for myself. I always go for those versions to read initially. But two queries. You mentioned bus passes. So is that for the school transport bus? And yeah. I thought that bus passes were just in place already. And then if you could just clarify that would be great. And then the second one then is the line where it talks about free transport for English and Welsh students. And if you could just give some background as to what scenario would it involve where that transport wouldn't be free, just for my own clarity, that'd be great. Thank you.
Well, firstly, bus passes. There's never been any reference to bus passes in the policy, so we've added that in. They've always been bus passes that we've issued to students, but there's never been any reference to the use of them in the policy. So I felt that needed to be added, particularly as we're now using NFC passes, and we've got a new system that actually enables us to see who's travelling on the bus each day. So that helps us to manage the numbers of students that we've got on our vehicles, and also where we can reduce the size of vehicles or even increase them. So it's really supported us, but it's never actually been mentioned in the policy previously. So we've added that section in. In terms of free transport, it may be that I think parents feel that, I mean, as it stands at the moment within our policy, because we have fewer Welsh medium schools than we have English medium or dual stream schools, then if we are transporting a student who wishes to be educated in the medium of Welsh, whether it at a Welsh stream or a Welsh medium school, then we would bypass an English medium school for them to attend. We don't do the reverse of that. We wouldn't offer transport to a school that is providing English medium education where a Welsh medium school is closest. So I think that's where parents are feeling that they would like it to be equal, and that if they need to travel further to an English medium school, then we should be providing that free of charge rather than actually prioritising the Welsh language.
I think it's important to raise a point that we have a duty to support the Welsh language, and that's our way of doing that.
That's very interesting. I wasn't aware of that, so thank you very much for the explanation.
Lovely. Councillor Gary.
Thanks. Perhaps just follow up on that point first, and then I've got another one as well. But yeah, it's a case in point for my ward in particular, and I've got my own interests and beliefs, and I'm a school governor of one of my schools. But certainly in the village of Trefeglwys, for instance, it's a Welsh medium only school or a school on transition to Welsh. And some parents choose that that's not the educational language for their children, and therefore mostly attend Llanidloes from us, but they don't currently receive transport support to get there. And that's been clearly in the policy for a long time and is clarified a bit more in this one. But I guess where, yeah, I think we do have to keep questioning that. Is it right? Is it the right thing? If it is, and we're comfortable with it, absolutely fine. But one of my questions was going to be, do we, again, sort of benchmark with other local authorities? Is that the same sort of policy that Gwynedd would have, for instance, or Monmouthshire or others? And are we quite consistent across Wales with our policies? We know it's a driving force from Welsh Government, great. But are we doing something different from our neighbours is one of the questions. And then really around that spare seat, vacant seat policy, possibly I might suggest that we look that is there an enhancement to the spare seat policy that could encompass some of those schools, for instance, because we do have that slightly farcical situation where we have dozens and dozens of cars driving behind an empty bus, we know, going to the same school and dropping their parents off, and it comes into that vacant seat policy. Technically, they would be out of catchment in terms of the policy, therefore we can't even look to charge them, so there's no option in our current policies. But if we looked at it under the spare seat policy, so they might not be within that 2 mile distance, some might even be within the 2 mile distance, but I don't know, perhaps just something for you as transport and schools teams to consider, because I do fear there's still a little bit of positive disparity in my opinion, but I can see why it causes absolute concern for residents in my ward, for instance.
Thanks, Councillor Gary. You mentioned quite an interesting local authority in terms of our current practice, and you mentioned Gwynedd. Gwynedd doesn't have any English medium education, so everybody is educated through the language of Welsh. But yeah, we've done analysis when we were looking at the policy previously, and we're not inconsistent. There are some other local authorities who have a slightly different interpretation of section 1.38 of the Learner Travel Wales measure, but what we've been applying this particular policy now since 2020, and yeah, I appreciate it. Some people may consider it to be unfair, but it is simply because we don't have the breadth of offer of Welsh language. So if a parent chooses Welsh language, we will promote that by offering transport which may not be their nearest school. Second point you raised about the vacant seat, again interesting, but we haven't been offering vacant seats which transport learners across a catchment area for some time now, and this was based on some recommendations where a school was using delegated budgets to provide their own transport from out of county. And so the argument was, well, if we can't do that, then the local authority should stop that sort of competition element by attracting learners from outside of their catchment. So that is the reason why we stopped taking learners from across catchments by making use of vacant seats.
Can I add here as well that
please do.
We do get criticised a lot actually by parents who are saying we're following the bus, but we would be providing transport to those students if they were attending their catchment school or their nearest school, where a parent makes a choice and they're absolutely within their right to make a choice of the school that they would like their child to attend. I think it's unreasonable to then complain that the local authority won't provide the transport, because actually, you know, we are delivering a transport policy that is taken from the Learner Travel Wales measure, and it's very clear about which is in how we apply near a suitable or catchment school. So I think where parents use that as a reason, you know, and environmentally is unfair in some instances. The legislation, unfortunately, when it comes to selling seats on vehicles, doesn't allow for that at the moment, and we're waiting for clarity. We're still waiting for clarity as to whether closed school contracts will still have to meet the PSVAR legislation, which means they'll need to be accessible. So until that's clear, that's cleared, we do in many instances use our discretion. That's written into the policy that we are able to use discretion, and where it's appropriate, we will apply that.
Okay, lovely. Next we've got Councillor John. Welcome, John. Councillor John Yeomans, your questions, please.
Hiya, and I'm pretty new to this, as you know, so if I'm asking the wrong things in the wrong way, please forgive me.
Ask away, John.
Thanks very much for the presentation. I noticed that quite often the slightly agree category kind of helped you over the edge, probably. And I know in my household, if my wife didn't agree with me, she definitely didn't, but if she only slightly agreed with me, I would think that gave me the mandate to go ahead and do it. But with the equality and discrimination grounds that you mentioned, I've met several parents where they've got one member of one of their kids that's doing Welsh, thriving on it and doing really well. I should add my grown-up children are all fluent Welsh speakers, but they've got other kids. Sometimes it's been, you know, they have sort of learning difficulties or something like that, and the kids, they've sort of felt they've had to drop them out of the Welsh just to try and grasp other life skills, really, and they feel, I think it'd be fair to say, they feel discriminated against. Do you feel 100% confident that if you were challenged in law, where you're offering, you know, free transport from A to B if B is Welsh, but not from B to A if A is English, that you would win 100%?
I think we've got discretion within the policy. It does allow us for discretionary arrangements. So where you refer to as one child that may actually be thriving through being educated through the medium of Welsh, and another child that isn't, we have many instances, which lots of people don't see because we deal with them in-house, where we've dealt with those circumstances and enabled a child to attend a school that actually meets their needs. So we'll liaise with school service and ensure that we provide what's, you know, necessary for that child's learning. The difficulty we have is where it's parents and parents' opinions are very, very important, don't get me wrong, but we need evidence sometimes to, or in many instances, to support an alternative arrangement for that student. And if a parent provides sufficient evidence to suggest that they need to go to a different school, then obviously we would provide the transport to that school.
Okay, so there's a pretty good chance if they appeal to you that you would be able to help them.
If they appeal and they have the sufficient evidence, then we can use our discretion and we don't have to go fully through the appeals process. We've done that in many, many instances. Even, you know, on some occasions, there might be a temporary arrangement that's made for a family because they might not meet the transport eligibility criteria, but they have specific needs in their family at that time. So we can use our discretion. And I think people don't appreciate how often we do that.
Are you confident that if somebody was to challenge it legally, that you'd be on pretty, you know, 100% strong footings?
To be fair, none of us are lawyers, and we can't speak on behalf of the judiciary, but this has been through our legal officers, and they they've made their comments within the policy. And to be absolutely clear, this is about offering Welsh language. It's not about not offering transport to an English school, for example. At the end of the day, we live in Wales, and the official language of Wales is Welsh, and we have a duty to promote that. As more and more Welsh medium schools come online, this will no longer become an issue, because there will be a greater spread of Welsh provision across the curriculum offer. But again, we're slightly confusing transport with the educational outcomes. So, we provide transport to a Welsh medium school simply because there isn't as many Welsh medium schools as perhaps we would like at this moment in time.
Okie doke, thanks.
I just want to thank you, Sarah, for clarifying that point, because something that I hear, and apologies, it is a bit rude, but the public residents often say that Powys hides behind its policies, that officers are not willing to make decisions. But you've clearly given us examples there where you do have those discretionary opportunities, and the officers are prepared to make those decisions. So I think it's important to highlight that, because I will use that myself, quoting back when I hear that criticism in the future. So yeah, thank you for explaining that. Yeah, we only hear about the ones that come into the public arena, I guess, don't we? Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Councillor Gwynber.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to come to today's meeting to come and try and give a little bit of education perspective onto this. And Sarah, in her presentation, said that it was linked with education, and in some respects, it was more important to education than transport. I'm going to make the point, and we've been through this argument before, and I understand why it comes to the economy scrutiny. I really don't understand why this isn't come into education scrutiny before as well. I think, particularly in relation to the Welsh language, I think it's very important that education scrutiny should have looked at this. I will make the point, I think this should have come before both scrutiny committees before it went out to consultation. And I certainly would have welcomed the opportunity to look at the real detail in everything in the policy, and not just the questions which have been asked. I think it did warrant us having a real look at this and seeing where we could. In relation to the consultation, I'm a little bit disappointed. The consultation has been run over the school holidays. Schoolgate highlights this. I don't think our comms team has done its due, because it's not been advertised on social media. I picked up on it on a few occasions, but if you look at the social media pages, this consultation is probably only mentioned once. I'm quite surprised at that, and it's almost as if we don't want the public to know about it. I understand there's more time to run, and certainly I hope we take this opportunity to write to schools so the schools can inform their parents that there is a consultation going out on school transport. The consultation only asks specific questions. I think there's an opportunity to comment on all aspects, and going through the online consultation, I found it very complicated, but I do concede that it was highlighting changes, etc., etc. In that consultation, there's nothing in the policy allowing for any flexibility. Don't want to remind everybody, but it has been through full council, and it was unanimously supported that there should be flexibility in the policy. I'll give you an example, and I'm giving you an example of my area. Llandriniaeth, Four Crosses has buses running through Welshpool and Llanfadlen, so it might be reasonable to assume at no extra cost. And we know there are other places in the county where similar aspects like that will be the same. Sarah, you very eloquently explained that we can go through an appeals process. I think there can be certainly some common sense applied in the policy prior to going to appeals. I don't know if you want to pick up on all them comments I've made now, and then I've got some comments on the Welsh language after, if that's okay, Chair.
Okay, so Councillor Gwynber there was asking how the consultation was advertised, as in where and when, beside that one occasion on social media. And he feels that the the consultation had very specific questions with no options to comment, and that there's no flexibility in the policy. I'm not sure, Councillor Gwynn, but I did try to look up through the full council minutes where the vote was on. I didn't find that, but it's about the flexibility in the policy is your concern, isn't it? So
yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. And just on relation to the consultation, you know, if you look at the consultation responses, we're looking at about 60 to 90 responses on all questions. Do we think that's a suitable outcome on a consultation? So that's, I'm just saying, I don't think we've reached out to all our parents with this consultation as yet, but obviously there's more time to go.
Okay. I can see Councillor Jackie's got her hand up. Were you looking to respond there, Jackie, or no? Okay, so Sarah.
Do you want me to I'll
have a go at that?
Section 2 in the policy makes very specific reference to discretionary travel arrangements. So I think we do have in the policy discretionary arrangements, so
page 46. Yeah, that's page. So, Councillor Gwynfor, I'm not sure if you received the full pack, but we received the presentation, but we also received a copy of the full policy. So, section 2 of the policy is on page 46 of our full pack.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just trying to remember the points that were made.
Yeah,
so
the discretionary travel arrangements, really,
yes.
That was section 2 there.
That's
and
right.
There is
also,
a paragraph that talks about that.
The consultation itself. Consultation doesn't close yet. It's open until the 12th. Unfortunately, we were pushed back a bit in being able to get this policy out for consultation due to the general election. It was very, very difficult. There was a time delay in us being able to get this out. My understanding is that certainly colleagues in school service, I think Sarah Quabell assisted in getting the information out to schools. Unfortunately, we were moving into the school holidays, so it was quite difficult. We also, when the exam results came out, there was reference to the, we asked the schools to actually make reference to the fact that there was this consultation on the school transport policy available. I realised that there were specific questions being asked, but those questions were specifically around the changes that have been made to the policy, not necessarily to the application of the policy. There wasn't an intention to change the application of the policy, more to remove some ambiguity and to take out reference to nearest suitable school and leave it as catchment school in alignment with the admissions policy and the new catchment maps that school service have produced, just to try and support that. There was after every question the ability to answer and give an opinion. Hence why some of the key points that I raise under each question that was put in place, those were a summary of those comments that people have made to date. Obviously, I will need to review the additional comments and people's opinion and actually look at the percentages again. But thus far, this is what we're looking at, and overall, I think that there is more than 50%, or there are more than 50% of people that agree to the changes that we're making to the policy.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Councillor Gwynfor, did you want to come back?
Yeah, no, we're working in percentages. So let's be honest, 50% of 90 people, 45 parents. Do we think this is a good response to our consultation? The second question, which I asked, why hasn't it become before education scrutiny? And secondly, you know, we've got them specific changes. Do you not think that scrutiny could have added? I've got a list of notes which I hastily went through the policy last night, which I think would have been relevant to what we're trying to create with them changes. I just don't understand why it didn't come to scrutiny before going out to consultation.
So I guess if can I ask a question then? If the consultation is still open, So the review is still taking place. Is there not time? Could it not go? Is there a reason why it can't go to learner skills scrutiny?
There is a bit of a time pressure on this as well. If we want to implement this for the next admission round, we have to get a decision before the end of this month. You have to give that sort of notice period that we're required to do. And the consultation is still open. So I don't think it's fair for officers to answer whether it should go to one scrutiny committee or another. I think that's a matter for the scrutiny chairs. Is that not correct?
I believe that Councillor Gwynfor, that the papers were sent to your full committee to give them opportunity to comment.
They were sent on Thursday evening. They couldn't be released until after it had been released to the public. I find it very strange why we as councillors cannot view documents prior to them going out. And with due respect, they were with us Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that's over a weekend. And even in that, I've had two councillors contacting me with as I said, points which are beyond the questions of the consultation. And I think, in my opinion, I think they would have given a great relevance to the document. But if you're happy for us to send them on to you by email and hope that they have the full debate which they deserve, well, that's it. But as I said, we seem to be bypassing scrutiny, and we're using the pre-election period as a reason for doing that. Personally, I would like to get the document right rather than rush it through.
Yeah, just for clarity there, Councillor Gwynfor, you received the paper the same time as ERC scrutiny. So just to be clear, we all received the paper the same time.
I'll make the point in behalf of ERC. Is that a great opportunity to study the documents when, as I said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for any of your committee, to be honest with you? It's continually happening with all our scrutiny committees. If you want us to give us the scrutiny which these things absolutely deserve, let's have the papers in significant time so that we can study them.
Here,
yeah, totally agree with you on that point, but I'm going to move on now, Gwynfor, and I'll give you opportunity to come back in at the end because members of my committee have got their hands up for questions. So I'm going to move on to Councillor Gary. Your questions, please.
No, thanks, and thanks for the previous points raised. I think mine was specific to the sort of hazardous routes element that you picked up, and it's always an interesting one, isn't it? I guess parents that are within that 2-3 mile sort of framework want the authority to do its duty if they believe there's a hazardous route. But gosh, there must be hundreds and potentially thousands of kids potentially walking to school or should be walking to school. But I guess one question I've got is, do we know how many actually get driven and how many walk, just in terms of our environmental impact? Would be interesting. I'm not desperate for that one, but it's about how do the timeframes work with you as an authority being able to do those hazardous route assessments? Because surely you can't expect somebody living close within a town boundary says, oh, you should drive my child to school and I think the route is hazardous. And you've got to prioritise ones that actually, if they're 2 miles away in a very rural setting with no pavements and ability like that. So I guess what our policy doesn't say is we'll assess a route within 3 months, parents.
You've raised a really good point there, Councillor Gary, because page 32, question 2 of the questionnaire, the consultation, it does make the point that the distance that transport will be provided, but it also says that the child is not expected to walk. And then in the policy itself, so it's page 44.1.2, the last paragraph. To me, it's not really clear what we're actually saying. So I think what you're saying, but Sarah, if you could explain this to me, you're saying the distance by which we decide whether you're entitled to transport is 2 miles for primary school or 3 miles for high school. But if you don't qualify for transport, the local authority isn't necessarily saying you have to walk to school. Yes. So is the local authority saying that if the route is not suitable for walk, it's your parents' responsibility to drive you or ride you on your bike or whatever, take you on an aeroplane, whatever you do?
I think we'd like to think that parents would consider whether or not it is appropriate for their child, whether they feel it is appropriate for their child to walk that distance. If you're in town, and you know, and you've got suitable pavements, I think it's up to a parent to make that decision as to the age and ability of their child as to whether or not they should be walking. I think when it comes to a hazardous route, because we're not saying that we assume a child will walk that distance to school. We would expect some parental responsibility. Secondly, there is that option where a parent feels that it's inappropriate for their child to walk and they're not able to take them themselves, then they would ask us to consider whether or not that route is hazardous, and as such we would then consider providing transport. But we've got to be very careful that we don't put ourselves into a position where every parent who doesn't wish to take the responsibility of getting their child to school when they're under the qualifying distance criteria immediately goes down a hazardous route direction, because we'd be putting taxis on everywhere, because we come across numerous parents who don't feel their children should walk 50 yards to school, yet alone, you know, and we have a cut-off point, and this is determined by the Learner Travel Wales measure, which is written by Welsh Government. There is, I think, some, you know, we do take on board. There is a difference between being in Cardiff to being in Powys. Many of our roads and our where children are being collected from, they are hazardous routes. They're not suitable really for walking. It's whether or not parents take that responsibility or whether they expect us to. And we've got to be very careful, I think, as to how we word it in the policy so that we don't open ourselves up to taking every single child to school.
So I don't know about Councillor Gary, but for my part, I don't think that is quite clear. I mean, I interpreted it in that way, but I don't think it quite says that. I think you do need to make the distinction between the distance to qualify for transport as being one matter, and the issue of whether the route is hazardous and suitable for walking is another matter. So the one is, you know, that is the distance. If you live over 2 miles away, you get transport. If you live under 2 miles away, you don't get transport as a matter of course. But then there's a supplementary to that, isn't there? And I think maybe that does need to be clarified a little more in the policy. I don't know if others agree. But Councillor Gary, you've still got your hand up, so you've got more comments.
No, I think it's fine. For me, it's just it's one of those elements where we could hide under a policy saying, well, we'll review it. But how long is that review going to take us? And we clearly say that's fine. It's the parent's responsibility until we've reviewed it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just pushing for some support in the policy that says we will review them and we will get back to you. So whatever it might be, 3 months, 6 months as an ambition, I don't know, because I don't know how long people are waiting for those reviews. And you've got to be judgmental in your review to say, okay, it might be hazardous, but is it then our responsibility or the parents? And I don't know how you balance that one. That's tricky, because like you say, everyone could argue one way or another it is hazardous to them perhaps, but it's also convenient if the local authority take them and I don't have to. So yeah, just
come to us through an appeals process, and the appeals process is very clear in the time frame that we have to respond. So when we look at appeals that come to us from parents that feel that their children shouldn't be walking to school, or that they should be entitled to transport for numerous reasons, we would look at that, and we've had 2 at least this academic year where parents have sort of said to us, well, I don't think it's safe for my child to walk. So it moves from being a standard appeal to us saying, okay, we'll review where you're living. Sometimes we can do that very quickly on Google Maps. You know, you can almost walk the route using Google Maps and see immediately that no, it isn't safe, and it would be inappropriate for the child not to receive transport. Now we've been challenged over it. On other occasions, we make arrangements and we liaise with the parents, and we'll go out and we'll walk that route at a time when the child would be expected to walk it. So when a parent challenges us, it would have to be at the same time the school transport would be operating.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jackie.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak here. I only want to say a couple of things, but also to say that this has been really interesting, this conversation. We've had a lot of conversations previously as we were making these changes to the policy, because all it was really was a case of changing the language to fit in with what we've got, policies we've got elsewhere, and trying our best to make it much easier for parents, carers, and whoever wants to read the policy to actually understand what we're trying to achieve here with the transport policy. I think we're a lot further forward than we were previously, but having this conversation this morning has assured me as the Cabinet member that we are taking concerns forward, and they will actually be included where we can in this policy. This is part of the consultation, if you like, as well. So it gives you as councillors on the Scrutiny Committee the opportunity to have a look at this. I'm really pleased that it's gone out to the Education, to the Learning and Skills Scrutiny Committee as well, for them to have the same opportunity that you have had. I've got absolutely no problem at all with it going to any scrutiny, because I think it's always helpful. So I've got no problems with that. The only issue I have is that our time frame has been cut short because of the general election. It was cut short because we needed to make sure that all the legal implications in the policy were correct. We've done that now, but it took a lot longer than we'd anticipated. This should have gone out a lot earlier than it did, but it didn't, and we are where we are. I think the other thing I wanted to make a plea for here, school transport is not free. It might be to the student and it might be to the parent, but actually we all pay for school transport, and the school transport budget is always overspent because we do take interest in what our children are doing, and we do change things where we feel it's absolutely appropriate, but that always has an impact on our budget. So we do have to make sure that we take that into consideration as well. So I just wanted to make that point really clear. School transport is not free. Thanks very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackie. Councillor Carl, I think that's the last of our scrutiny panel, but over to you. Oh, no, it isn't. I can see Peter's put his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a general comment. We see it time and time again. I know Councillor Jackie's touched on the general election, etc. But I'm not picking on Fleet, I'm not picking on Highways Recycling or anyone else, but it does seem, as Councillor Gwynfor correctly pointed out, we're always having reports last minute, and they seem to turn up and expect us to view them on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I just don't think we're doing credit to
Councillor Carl, I totally agree with you, and that's something that we need to address as scrutiny chairs with our officers and our full. I'm really conscious of the time. I'm conscious that we've got another really meaty item on the agenda that I want to get to. So I'm just going to say, are there any more comments specifically on this policy that we want to get across today? I thank you, Councillor Carl, for raising that, and you are correct. But as I say, I want to move us on now because I'm conscious of the time running away with us. So Councillor Peter, and then we'll end with Councillor Gwynfor, if everybody's all right with that.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sarah, for the presentation. It's really a clarification on how many bus passes are issued to students year on year on a ballpoint figure, and what sort of time frame do the actual students get their bus pass? Because I know that a couple of students have been sort of left where they haven't had their bus pass and not been able to get on the bus to actually get to school or college.
Okay, ballpark figure, probably about 7,000 passes that we issue. We try and ensure that those transitioning from primary to secondary school, that we get a list of from school service, that we look at those, we consider the entitlement earlier on in the year. This was something that we didn't previously do. So we received that information. We try and produce all those passes for those children who are eligible. We send out letters to parents to say that if they make a decision for their child to attend that school, they wouldn't be entitled to transport. Then we look at printing the passes and getting them out before the end of the school term. When it comes to those new students coming into school for the first time, into primary school, we do rely quite heavily not only on the information that we get from school service, which is fantastic to see all the learners coming in, but also on applications from parents. The issue we have with many of the very young students is that lots of parents don't want them to go on transport initially. So there may be an entitlement, but parents may not wish them to actually use the transport initially. And don't get me wrong, we miss things. There are some passes that perhaps we haven't produced that we should have. And obviously it's really important for parents just to contact us and let us know. So, you know, it's not that there are two dedicated officers dealing with all the student transport passes and looking at the eligibility criteria. That's overseen by another officer, and then obviously passes are printed by our admin. So there's a very small team dealing with a lot of passes. So yes, we do make some mistakes.
Does the pass last just for 1 year or
No.
for a period of time?
No, for primary learners, it will last for the duration of their primary education.
Okay.
And then for secondary learners, we go up to the October half term for those who are finishing in year 11, because we don't get the results for GCSEs until very late in August. It's quite difficult and quite challenging for us always to make sure that we've got passes then for students, whether they're going back to do A levels, whether they're going to out of county, or whether they're going to colleges. That's a really tight time frame for us, and sometimes, you know, what we've done is for those year 11 students, we extend their pass to the 31st of October. So whilst they're making that decision, we don't lose them off our list of students that previously had a pass to go to that school. Lots of them go to college and then decide they want to go back to school. So it's, you know, we have that challenging period between now and half term.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. That's very
You're
clear.
welcome.
Cheers.
Thank you. And Councillor Gwynber.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just an opportunity to conclude, really. I'm just concluding that I'm not happy with the situation, and Councillor Jackie's remarks saying that she's happy that the Education Committee have had an opportunity to view this. No, we haven't. I think we as a committee would have liked to have had more time in this. I've already said I'd like to have had it before consultation. We've got comments in relation to school transformation, school closures, change of school categories, etc., etc., etc. I think they're very relevant points in relation to the school transport policy. So the only thing that I can offer you now, we're meeting, I've got a pre-meet this afternoon. I will discuss it with my committee, and we'll have the opportunity to feed some of them in by email. I think that's unfair on us, because I think we should have had our officers present, and they may be able to clarify our questions. So that was the crux of it. Thursday, we gracefully asked Councillor Angela if I could attend the meeting today, because we think there was an important contribution to had by Education Scrutiny. I'll say again, I don't think we've had that time, and I'll say again, I don't think 90 responses to your consultation is enough to give consideration to what you're trying to create here. So grasp from me, I'm unhappy. I don't think it's the way to done it. We can use the election as an excuse. It still needed due scrutiny, and we think we could have added to it. And obviously, I don't want to take up any more of your time. And thank you, Councillor Angela, for giving us this opportunity today.
Thank you, Councillor Gwynber. Thank you very much for your comments. Can I just check then with officers? Given this is an update of where we are so far with the consultation, will the final paper come back to scrutiny at all? Will there be another opportunity when the final decisions are made?
We need to sort of review what the feedback is at this moment in time. Taking on board Councillor Gwynber's point around the level of responses. I'm not entirely sure what we can do to get people to respond to it. Could be that
no, I appreciate that, but this is an update, regardless of how many people do or don't respond from this time forward. When the consultation closes and you're making your proposals, will they come back to scrutiny? Because can I make the suggestion, if they do, that we do that as a joint scrutiny? And I'm sure Councillor Gwynber would welcome that.
As long as time permits, I don't think that's going to be bad. I don't have a particular problem with it being scrutinised. We just need to be mindful of the time frame that we're working within.
And can I make then some, just to sort of round up, to make some observations really. But I agree with Councillor Gwynber, we do need our papers sooner, but that point's been well made. Can I make the point here that we really do need to re-advertise this consultation? If Councillor Gwynber is correct that it was only put on social media once, can that go out to schools? That could go out today to sort of make schools aware, so they can make their parents aware of the consultation. I mean, you have actually responded there where the comment was made that the consultation was very specific, but it's clear from what Sarah says there was actually a box for comments, so I think that's answered that. And also where the comments were made that was no flexibility in the policy, I think, Sarah, again, you've made it very clear that there is a discretionary opportunity within the policy. So I was pleased to hear that as well. I would welcome the idea of an easy read to sit alongside the full policy. The full policy is 8 pages, and that might be a little bit overwhelming for some people. But I am really, I struggle with the grey area because it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's a grey area. But I think you've made it very clear that officers do have to make difficult decisions and are prepared to make them. So I think you've clarified those issues for me. One thing that wasn't mentioned that I just want to say, I'm very pleased to see that there is a paragraph there on page 47, 2.6 about medical needs, because I think that is really important. If children are ill or have an accident or something, their access to school becomes difficult. And I know that was an issue that affected my family, but I'm pleased to see that's in the policy and that you've recognised that. So I applaud that. But I'm going to end there because, as I say, I'm really conscious of the time, but I want to thank you, Sarah and John and Councillor Jackie, for coming and answering those questions for us. Thank you very much. So if everybody's happy or relatively happy as we can be, let's move on to item 6 of our agenda, which is the, item 7, which is the car park review update. And we're on pages 51 to 178 of our full pack. So we've got the report from Atkins, the consultants that were brought in to do the review, and we've got the report here to the council, from the council. Again, it's John leading us through this, Matt and John. So over to you guys.
Just to open up before John and the team come in, I'm mindful that this has been going on for a period of time. There's been a lot of work that's gone into this, and just to reiterate that this is not the end of the review. This is just one element of it, but we felt this had to come forward in terms of the tariffs, because obviously that was the sort of the major point that was raised within the working group. But just to be clear, as officers, we've got to put something forward that balances the books. We can't obviously put proposals forward that's going to cost the authority more money. So we want to really have that debate today, have that feedback, and then obviously we can reflect and sort of take that forward. But just to reiterate, this is not the end of the review. There will be further elements coming back into scrutiny around the future of the car parks and what we're likely to do with it. But today is probably may seem that we are focusing on tariffs, but that was a contentious point within the working group. So I'll pass over to John and the team. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. So, Chair, basically the report sets out there was a transport review, there was a cross-party working group that with consultants that had a fairly broad remit, but the discussion, as Matt has alluded to, sort of almost wanted to centre around the fares being charged and around the issue of the 1 hour being removed from the long stay car parking options. So when we in compiling this report, we put together a summary of the recommendations from the working group, which led to a position where, with the mitigation of the reintroduction of the 1 hour, it was a cost of around 138,000. But the mitigation is to increase charges to from the 2 to 4 and 4 hour all day charges, which would have generated a surplus of 5,000, nearly just under £6,000. Unfortunately, what that doesn't do, it doesn't deal with the in-year deficit that we have within the car parking budget, and it was felt that we couldn't recommend that. So what officers have done has come up with a set of alternative recommendations set out in section 4 in the report, where it would look to balance the budget and generate a little bit of extra income. The point being that there is income raised from our car parks, that they provide a very important part of our sort of high street infrastructure, and so this is a way of trying to balance what the recommendations of the car parking review. We take on board those, but unfortunately it couldn't quite balance the budget, so there's a set of officer recommendations which do. And I don't know if you want me to go through the budget, through the report on a line by line basis, but that's a summary of what the report is saying.
Well, we'll just check. The committee, have you all had ample opportunity to read this report and the accompanying document? Because I think if everybody's happy, I'm happy for us to go straight into questions. I have got just one question, just for clarity, John. You say the car parks generate income. Can you just first outline where that income goes?
Yeah, it's a revenue stream into the council, and it is used to support other services. For simplistic sort of reasons, I often, for my own benefit, say, well, if the car parks generate a revenue of around about £1.8 million, we spend around about 1.5 million on public transport. So that, it comes back into the pot, and then it's used to balance the wider budget.
Yeah. So in terms of the car parks themselves, we're not saying that the income generated there is just being spent on car parks, because that has been a comment that's raised to me. What on earth are the car parks? What are we paying for? Although obviously there are some costs to actual car parks themselves. But no, the money is going into the general pot. Yeah. Okay, so we got some hands up. Councillor Liz, you had your hand up, but it's come down.
Oh, yeah, no, I want it to be back up. I'm not sure what happened there.
So over to you. You were first.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, thank you, officers, for the report. And, I know from everything I've picked up, it's been a really challenging piece of work for, officers and members. And it seems like there's some good medium and long-term proposals. My question's a short-term proposal, and it's about the rationale for the increase in car park charges. So I can see there's a recommendation to reintroduce the 1 hour parking into the long stay car parks. And these are the car parks where the short stay was removed in 2023. And the report seems to be saying that this will result in a loss of revenue, and that to balance the budget, parking charges for the long stay will need to increase, from £4 to £5 for all day, £3.25 to £3.80 for 4 hours. I can also see that from the report that there was a 74,000 decrease in parking tickets purchased in the last financial year. So I'm wondering, is this likely to have been because the 2 hour tickets, only 2 hour tickets were available? So people who would have paid for 1 hour probably went off and sought alternatives like, on-street parking in residential areas. So if the decision's taken to reinstate 1 hour parking and more tickets are sold, then do we need to really increase the parking for the long stay? Because looking in the report from the consultants, it does look like, the short-term parking is generating more income than the long-term parking in most car parks. And I recognise that this works both ways, and that some people who are paying for 2 hours would, under the proposal, only pay for 1 hour. But, I'm not convinced that there's going to be a loss of income. And so some clarification on that would be helpful. Sorry, that was a bit of a long question, but I was just trying to put it into the sort of points, because it's not straightforward, is it? It's a balancing act, really.
So John or Matt?
Yeah, there's many reasons why car park income fluctuates. I mean, we have had a particularly bad summer this year, wet weather. There are many reasons. So we can't really attribute, the loss of the fit. It may have had an impact, but then people not travelling around, or if it had a particularly wet summer, might have impacted as well. So all we can go on is what we know to date, and we know that there's been a decrease in ticket sales, but it's an increase in revenue. So what we have to make recommendations are on what we consider to be fair and costed, and that's where we come up with the suggestion to increase the longer stay components of the car parking tariffs, but still on a per hour basis. It's still cheaper per hour to park for a longer period of time. So we're trying to balance the, trying to attract people into our towns to stay longer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just that I thought the figures that were not from this year. I thought they were from last year, from 23-24.
But there's, like I said, there's
Summer
variables.
before.
There are variables that drive what I don't think, and perhaps Tony would be able to back me up, I don't think 2 years have ever been consistent in terms of our car park income. It goes up and down there's no, we can't attribute one particular reason for why there's a loss of sales. It could be a number of factors. It could be one of which could be the reduction in the 1 hour tariff, but there could be other factors as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there, John. I'm sure there are other factors. There could be events on in a town or a community. There could be good weather or bad weather. And I think for that very point, I think it's impossible for you to attribute the change in income. And I think you can't use that argument in two directions. Either you do know what's making the difference to the income and the usage of car parks, or you don't. And it seems to me this report implies both where it's convenient, but we'll move on there. Councillor Carl.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I've got a number of questions, but I think the first one is a point about how long it's taken to gather this report. I've read the report. It's quite extensive, quite interesting, really, but I'm disappointed in how long it's taken. I think we spent over 50,000 on this report.
I agree with you, Councillor Carl. This has taken a long time, but I hate to do this, but I am really conscious of that time. This meeting's supposed to finish at past. I am prepared for us to run over well beyond that time, because I think there are a lot of questions we've got to ask.
I will move on.
Yeah, please do, Carl. Thank you very much.
So the first question, paragraphs 2.15, 2.16 and 3.15 highlight the importance and concern of the working group, with a recommendation one asking for reintroduction of the 1 hour tariff on long stay car parks. None of these advantages were shown in the report, such as reintroduction would support high street footfall. It also would encourage people just to pop into shops and come away again.
This stop and shop sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, this would support the local town centres and local shops that are there already. There's a struggling. This would also foster greater willingness to pay, which is more in line with people's needs, and possibly any reduction in revenue could be balanced out by encouraging shorter stays in car parks and a higher turnover. So I just, want to make that point there, and just ask why that wasn't included in the report.
It's simply because the recommendations didn't provide us with a balanced budget.
Right. It just seems to me that, John, you've run roughshod over the recommendations from the working group and put in your own views there. So it just seems a complete waste of councillors' time if one of their main points is just being disregarded, essentially.
Well, I'm not entirely sure it's been disregarded. One of the points was around bringing back the 1 hour into the communities where they don't have that. We've actually suggested that's part of the recommendations.
All right. Paragraph 3.7 demonstrates how free nighttime car parking helps the nighttime economy. So surely cheaper daytime parking would also benefit daytime economy. So please consider this in context of the 1 hour tariff. And paragraph 3.9 should consider in context of the question from members of the public and the full council. Just remind you, in full council, a member of the public asked on the 20th of July, could show goodwill in offering free car parking on a Saturday in December's running up to Christmas. And I'd like to expand on that a little bit further. Are you planning to do that again this year? Would that be something that you're looking at doing?
Again, within the report, it recommends that that effectively is stopped unless there is sufficient in-year headroom within the budget. If we overachieving an income by 21,000, that's a matter for the portfolio holder to consider.
Right. Okay. The costings in Table 2 accompanying the paragraphs 4.2, 4.3 of the report do not include the considerations of possible benefits set out in my first point, and also include these should above. These should be part of the deliberations, even if it's only acknowledged as a comment that appears somewhere in the budget implications. Not so. Yeah, if we could have that considered as well. And
sorry, sorry, Carl, I didn't quite understand that. Can you just repeat that? Beg your pardon.
The costings in Table 2 accompanying 4.2 and 4.3 in the report do not include any consideration of possible benefits in my first point.
Increase.
Right, I see. It's okay. So the benefits that are listed in the full report, because in the Atkins reports, all the different comments are included, but they're not included here, is what you're saying in this report. Yeah. My
final point is on paragraph 2.17 states the review process was not fully complete and appears to lay the blame of the work at the feet of the working group. I would strongly suggest that appendix. So it leaves the blame at the working group, and consequently, I would like to see a comment redacted and apology issued to all members of the working group, if possible, please, Chair.
Well, I'm just reading that comment. It should be stated that whilst the review process was not fully achieved, the work of the consultants and the report was governed by the working group. Definitely was. I was a member of that working group. And as such, the outcome of the report reflected the discussions and the direction of the working group. I mean, I would agree with that point. I don't know what other members think. I'm not sure what. Yeah, sorry, I'm confused by that. I don't know what that statement means, Carl. I'm really sorry.
Right, okay.
Okay, should we move on to some more questions and just see how we go? And then if you want to come back at the end, if you feel that your questions haven't been answered, because I want to give everybody the opportunity to speak. So Councillor Graham, we haven't heard from you today. Welcome. And if you've got comments.
Thank you, Chair. I've got some comments more than questions, really.
Right. Okay. I mean, I really kind of want to get to the questions.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very important that you hear what we've got to say as members of this committee as well, Angela.
Lovely. Okay, Graham.
I welcome the announcements from Matt that this is only the start, because I think there has to be changes to the proposals we're seeing here today. You'll be aware, I'm sure, that a year ago, along with Councillor Gareth Jones, I agreed to withdraw a proposal to full council calling for the reintroduction of the £1 car park short stay charge on the promise from the portfolio holder, Councillor Charlton, that she would carry out a full review. The irony is that because we had cross-party support, we would probably have won that vote and would not have been having this conversation at all today. Little did I know at the time that the review would take over 12 months to produce, and its costs would escalate from a projected 20 to 30,000 to an incredible figure of £50,000. And as someone who played a small part in that working party, never did I expect to now see recommendations from officers that come before us today. As councillors, we agreed to this review with an expectation that our concerns about our town centres were being listened to and understood, but they are being totally ignored, and particularly in the case of Wellspool, my ward. There's hardly a day goes by in Wellspool when a business owner does not complain to me that their takings have been affected by the cost of parking. So quite rightly, I've been fighting their case. The results are that this authority proposes not to reinstate the reduced short stay charge in Wellspool's two main car parks, but instead will increase the cost of parking again. Yes, again.
And the reason given for that is because we already have a short stay park in one area of the town. A short stay car park that has only 40 spaces and is nowhere near the main car park areas and not even signposted. And more importantly, the report says is already 87% full at most of the
Right,
time.
Councillor Graham, I am going to stop you there. I am sorry, you're clearly reading your comments, and I appreciate that you've put work into this, but I want us to scrutinise this report. So I want questions,
I'm going to ask
please,
a question
for
in a moment,
officers.
Chair.
Yeah.
I'm a member of this committee and I would like to continue.
But scrutiny isn't here for political platforming. We are here to ask questions of the report.
I'm an independent councillor, Chair, and if I'm being denied the right to speak at the scrutiny committee, there is something seriously wrong.
I'm asking you, Councillor Graham, I'm asking you to bring forward your questions, please.
I don't wish to make a question, Angela. If I am being denied the right to speak at the scrutiny committee, as someone who agreed to withdraw a proposal going to be made to full council on the understanding that this review would take place, if I am being denied the right to speak, I'm going to take serious action.
Councillor Graham, I don't want to deny you the right to speak. I thought you said that you had a question at the end, and I'm asking you to bring the question.
Councillor, you allowed Councillor Gwynfor Thomas to speak for about 5 minutes early on the debate. And he's
okay, Councillor Graham, we're not going to agree, so I'm going to allow you to continue, but I'm conscious of the time because the meeting's going to time out. That's the issue I have.
I'll be as quick as I possibly can. So I'm saying that Wellspull is being shafted by this council. Yes, I do. And I do feel that Wellspull, along with some other towns, is being asked to subsidise large areas of the rest of Powys. And I do feel that Wellspull will lose even more business if this is allowed to take place. And what is really galling is that while there is recognition in the report that the reintroduction of cheaper short stay charges would actually lead to increased revenue, an opportunity has been spotted here to project the generation of around another £400,000. So I will cut it short for you, Angela. I hope that the portfolio and the cabinet's colleagues and the officers involved in this report and its recommendations fully take on board what they're being told today, or they will long be held responsible for the death of town centres across Powys. All car parks, what I'm asking, and this is the question, all car parks across Powys must have a short stay option, one that is equal across the whole county. This option was not raised in the consultation. So could the officers confirm the rationale behind this thinking to penalise certain towns like Wellspull? Why should Wellspull have only 40 short stay car park places while other towns will have hundreds? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. And that is a very valid question, and I thank you for bringing that forward. Can I just ask our officers, can we extend this meeting time? Because I'm really conscious I don't want Zoom time to time out, and we've already gone over our allotted time. Rachel, is that possible?
Yes, Chair, you can continue.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so Councillor Graham, I was really worried that at past we would time out and be switched off, and that was my real concern there. But thank you. So officers, could you answer that question about short stay, having parity and clarity and fairness across the county for availability of short stay places? Who's going to answer that?
Sorry, Tony, you're going to Matt, was it?
Yeah, I was just going to come in on that point. So just to be clear, you know, through this review, we did look at introducing the sort of the 1 hour back to all car parks, but you know, as John outlined, the cost to the service we couldn't balance it. And as I said at the start, we can't bring stuff forward that's going to cost the authority more. And I appreciate these came through in motions to the council, but equally any motion would have to stack up financially, you know, for it to be taken forward. So the rationale was the 5 car parks that have been selected. There's no short stay elements within there. So Crookowl as an example, there's only one car park there. So we felt that it was those areas that didn't have the short stay element that was the reason for it to be introduced. So that's the rationale essentially.
But the numbers of spaces, I think, is Councillor Graham's concern that in his town there will be very few 1 hour short stay. So have we done any work about, you know, as a proportion of the car parking spaces available in each town, whether they're currently classified as long stay or short stay? Have we got any evidence for the percentage of number of available short stay spaces?
Tony, I don't know if the team would have any data in terms of the Welsh Pool short stay car park as to usage. Would you have that data?
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look now, and in the 12-month period, I looked at, we sold somewhere in the region of 70,000 tickets, which equates to about 200 a day. That's at a maximum of 2 hours, so that's a mix of 1 and 2 hours. So if there's 40 spaces, you know, that's roughly 5 hours worth. That's the days worth. Potentially they're quite occupied in that car park, so it might limit the number of spaces that are available, certainly at the peak times of the day. But what we need to consider on balance is the level of on-street parking as well. You know, we do have on-street parking in the towns, which majority of the towns are 1 hour, and that's something we've said we probably might look at in the future, is with towns and us. I think it was Bilth Town Council mentioned they would like to see half an hour on the street to double the turnover, so double the amount of very short-term parking within the town. That might not suit every town, but those are conversations that could be had in the longer term.
So I don't know. I'm not sure that answers Councillor Graham's question about the number of short stay spaces for his ward. So I think there's a further conversation definitely needed there to make sure there's clarity and parity across the county. I'm going to bring others in. So Councillor Gary, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Personally, I'm quite disappointed. I think it's taken us a long time to get to this point. We as Scrutiny have had a very short period of time to review the papers, unless you were involved in that working group. First we saw them was back end of last week, and it's arguably an extensive report. Really, it's a short report with a load of appendices, which frustrates me, if I'm honest. 40, 50,000 pounds for 18 pages plus a load of appendices worries me. But I'm just going back to our sort of scrutiny guiding principles to consider the impact for our residents and our communities. That's the first guiding principle of us as Scrutiny. But what I feel the report and the officer's recommendations pretty much ignores that. It looks at budget pressures on the authority, and we look to create an opportunity for our town centres and our residents to get some of that shorter stay costing back in, but immediately impact others under longer stay and increase figures elsewhere. So we're looking to solve one issue with another problem, and that generally really frustrates me, because I don't think we've honestly going to be able to do the working group justice, the consultants justice, and the officers that have been considering it all and number crunching everything. We've got a set of recommendations from the working group, some of which were or weren't taken up in the report. Go to officers, and officers make a different recommendation, and I really struggle with that, because we've spent almost a year doing that. And Graham's absolutely right. Newtown's another case in point. It's got 50 short stay car parking spaces for one of our key towns in Powys. Yes, it's got 2 other longer stay car parks. Great, loads of capacity in them. Don't doubt that. But if we have that disparity against somewhere like Brecon, which has 12 car parks to choose from, how's that fair? And the report itself still says we've got discretionary car parks where it's free in some towns. There are some towns in our local authority that have completely free parking, even though they're authority owned. That's not fair to me. That's not creating uniformity. It's creating disparity and frustration. So I'm not able to be comfortable with it at all. It looks at maximising resources for me. It talks about 25% increase in enforcement, although we're saying we can't afford that. It doesn't consider, in my opinion, enough the impact on the town centres, which is why it was first brought about as a motion. So I just don't know where we go with it, to be honest, Chair. You've got quite a few recommendations to try and get agreement on. I don't know whether you're going to have to take them individually and see what we agree on or not, or take the whole pot as a recommendation, but I'll leave that one in your capable hands. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Gary. Councillor Corinna.
I just wanted to make, I've got a question and 3 quick comments. I live 23 miles from Leominster, where I used to work, and I note from the Realis report that currently you can park all day in Leominster for £3 and it's £1 an hour. It's roughly 4 times bigger than Knighton, so there's lots more to do in Leominster. Just saying that, so that's a little bit further than if I travel to Landrindod for me. The other thing is about signage. I was unaware that there is a free car park in Bilth. I've often been to Bilth. I wonder if the signage of the 1 hour or cheaper options, the short stay options, is sufficiently clear. I'm thinking about the £114,000 for just 2 extra enforcement officers. I'm not quite sure why this is so expensive. And I'm wanting to understand further paragraph 4.1. It doesn't seem to add up to me. What's the 121,000 down, please?
Thank you, Corinna. Some really good questions there. So, officers, please, can you enlighten us?
Can I just ask a question on the free car park in Bilth? There are 2 car parks in Bilth and they're both pay and display.
Sorry, I should have said short stay, not free. For Smithfield, is it? Have I got
That's still the same as, so Smithfield is a long stay car park, so you can, it's the same as the Grow car park, so the minimum length of stay you can buy at the moment is 2 hours in both car parks.
I beg your pardon, in which
case? I could touch on the costs of the civil enforcement officers. It's not just their wages. We have all the on costs of NI and pension, and we've also got the equipment, the software charges, the vehicles that they need to drive around in, the fuel. There's lots of on costs that need to be added in. It's not just their wages, so that they're certainly nowhere near earning over 100,000 between the two. It's all those extra costs that get added to the position.
Can I ask a supplementary to that point that might be relevant there? So it's 3.8 in our full pack, page 57. Do we know how effective these additional enforcement officers are? Are they a deterrent, or do they bring in an income? I mean,
yeah. So if we solely look at the income from the penalty charge notices, that does not cover the costs of the enforcement officers. Legislation doesn't allow us to set them targets that they have to issue, say 10 a day, 5 a day, 20 a day, whatever. We can't do that. In effect, our vision is 0. If they issue 0 tickets a day, that means everyone's complying. It's their presence is having that effect. We will never get to that stage where we'll have enough enforcement officers to get to 0 PCNs, and people will still take the chance. People either forget to come back and they overstay. So there's human error involved as well. But through scrutiny, through the workshops, it was the I know I've had discussions with Councillor Bryan on this, is the times that we enforce and extending the period in which we enforce throughout the day and over weekends. We are limited on numbers. We have 4 in each area, 4 in the south,
8 full-time equivalent. Yeah.
One's currently on long-term sickness through to a very serious illness. So we are short on numbers, given the size of the county and how far our communities are spread across this county. So
Okay,
it
well,
is
thank you.
very
Yeah, no,
difficult,
appreciate that. Thank you, Tony. And I'm pleased to hear that they're not seen as an income stream, because one thing we don't want Powys to get a reputation of putting parking tickets on our visitors and our residents left, right and centre. So the deterrent area, that's good news. So Corinna, did you want to come back in there? Because
yes, please.
you
I'm
were
sorry.
asking, weren't you, page 58, the unachieved car park savings.
Yes, I didn't understand that. Thanks.
121,000. Could we have some clarity on that?
I can come in on that, Chair. So if in terms of the table, so even if we took forward those recommendations, so reinstate the 1 hour in the long stay car parks and looked at the mitigations that were outlined, whilst that achieves 5,900, that comes off the 127,000 in new financial pressure. So what that means, essentially, our target for car park income is roughly just over 2 million. And that 121,000, we are predicting that we're going to fall short of that income target. As a result, that will come as an overspend or deficit within the HTR budget overall. Hence why we push in to try and balance this as best as possible.
I'm sorry, and the 50,000 blue badge unachieved savings, I don't.
Yeah, so the blue badge charges, that was as part of the budget setting process last year, so we'd introduce charges. So that's a separate income target that's been set for that element. Obviously, it's within the car parks, but it's a separate income stream or target for that.
Oh.
And I appreciate it. I don't know if any others want to. That's the best way I can explain it. So we've got the car parks, and whilst blue badges have been introduced as a charge within the car parks, that there is a target set for that, and that's been delayed slightly because we obviously need to change all the signage in one go.
Thank you.
Councillor Rafe, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just go straight in on that point. So at point 4.1, 121,000 in unachieved car park savings. Is that just lost income? That's not savings.
Yeah, so that's income that we don't think that we'll achieve. So the target is 2 million, and we are projecting we're going to be 121,000 short of that target. And then from a finance side of things, because we come short of that target, then that's seen as a pressure then within the HTR budget. Hence, we would have to find savings from waste and recycling or any other budget to try and balance it.
Right, yeah. So I read that as unachieved savings, as in the department was planning to make savings of.
No, it's
but it's actually lost income. Yeah,
so we're going to fall below that target.
Okay. I just got a couple of other points. So the removal of the free parking at Christmas, that concerns me greatly, and I think we need to know what the economic impact of that could be. We're already, against a trend of people shopping outside of our towns and going to major towns to access free parking in retail parks, etc. And I think this will contribute to that. So that concerns me a lot. The proposal to charge blue badge holders, my only question on that would be, and I know that's slightly different to this, but it is mentioned, are we absolutely sure that all of those disabled people who use our car parks will be able to use the ticket machines?
Should I answer both of those? If you
Cheers, thanks, Tom.
Yeah. So the free Christmas parking obviously has been mentioned. If we're showing that the financial position can afford that free parking, then the cabinet member can make that decision to allow that on the road to Christmas. But what we also do, and for those in the south of the county may know this more, Brecon are currently paying for every single Saturday now till I think the end of March for one car park. So they've effectively hired the Watton car park from us every Saturday to offer free parking to visitors of Brecon. So there are other options around this. So it's not, doesn't have to be the council providing free parking. The town councils, as Brecon has shown, can do this as well. So that's a positive thing that we can do. If the county council can't do it, the town councils can come up with that as a solution. I've forgotten what the second point was now.
Yeah, it was a question of, are we sure that all the disabled people who we plan to charge are going to be able to use the machines?
Yeah, so we've currently got a very small number of machines that aren't accessible, and we are working with our highways team to make that possible, and we won't introduce the charges until that's the case. I think there's about 6 machines out of nearly 60 machines. So it's a small percentage, but nonetheless, they are there, and we are addressing that. Plus also we're looking in the very short term, we will be introducing a phone payment solution. So that gives another option for anyone to use. You can do that then at your leisure, from the comfort of your car before you get out, or as you're walking away or wheeling away from the car park itself. You don't have to go to the machine in that situation.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Tony. And just finally, Chair, I think my summary on this is that the proposal in 4.6, I think, goes a little bit too far. Yes, it's going to generate potentially over £400,000 of revenue, but our car parks cannot be purely treated as a revenue income stream because of the economic impact that they have in our towns. And just following the comments from other members, there seems to be a common theme of fairness here, and these proposals do not fully address that. And some of them are quite concerning, actually. And I think unless we do address those big issues, this won't be considered complete as far as the purpose of the review goes. And so I think there's opportunity here. Certainly the paper demonstrates the potential income. So for me, when reading this, it's not necessarily the income and balancing the books. It's more about the comments made by members today as far as the fairness and the goes in car park provision across our towns. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Carl.
Thank you, Chair. My question has been almost answered by what Councillor Rafe has picked up there with Tony. The question was, have highways officers had any conversations about town centres taking on a broader responsibility when it comes to budget pressures, and what the car park review's recommendations were? Have any highways officers talked about doing that? I hear Tony mention Brecon was looked at. I believe it was Brecon that you mentioned there, Tony. Has that been sort of the ideas being bounced around, to go down to Newtown with that idea, and has Newtown Town Council been contacted for their views on that?
But yeah, we haven't done it expressly, but a lot of town councils are familiar with what we do because they do hire the car parks for other events that either they are involved directly or indirectly with. The Newtown, was it the food festival at the weekend? They did that for Back Lane.
Do you know of any conversations that have happened recently about, because you're pulling the part about Christmas shopping away now in car parks? Has any conversations happened with town council, especially the town closest to me, Newtown, about taking on responsibilities at Christmas for free parking?
Obviously, this is a proposal still to go to Cabinet. So I think it's prudent to wait until Cabinet's made the final resolutions, and if it is resolved that the potential is that Christmas parking is not funded, then we can certainly put that message out to town councils. It's just for information. We did have a spell where we haven't done this as well, so it's not always been an assurity every year that we've funded this. It was only brought back in fairly recently after a short break, and it's not been running for a significant length of time before that either.
No. So what I'm getting at really is that yourself, Matt, and John haven't had conversations about, you know, potentially this is the road we want to go down. Town council's taking on that responsibility. Have you had those conversations in private?
Just on that point, Chair. So, no, being frank, I haven't had the conversation yet. But as Tony said, this is a report that's got to go to cabinet. But just on the point of the free parking for events, we have caveated that so that, you know, if there is budget available, then, you know, the portfolio that comes to Jackie that will have that discretion then to support. So depending on how the budget is looking towards Christmas time, we still could be able to fund it. So that's why we've left it as it is, really. So we haven't said no, but equally, if there's a budget there, perhaps not just car parks, but if there's perhaps we've got a surplus budget elsewhere, we could support it, because we are mindful it does encourage people in the run up to Christmas to come in. So we have left it open, depending on where the budget situation is.
Yeah, because obviously that would reflect in the town precept for residents in towns, that obviously their precept would have to go up to fund that if town councils want to go down that route. But that's a matter for town councils. Thank you, Chair. Okay.
Can I just point out there that it's all very well saying town councils could pay the car parking fee, but if that has to be added onto the precept, it's like the county council, town councils don't have big pots of money. So if the town councils were to pay the cost of parking in the run up to Christmas or wherever else, they're putting it on the precept. That means effectively residents are paying twice, doesn't it? So that's not a simple answer either. If you'll bear with me, John and Jackie, I know Councillor Chloe's got to go, but she's just put a point there that she'd like to raise. So if you're still with us, Chloe, or have we missed her? I think we've missed her. She's already gone. So I'll bring her point in at the end then. Okay, Councillor John.
I again say, I expect you folks have got a lot more skills and experience than me, and it's probably more sort of observations than a question. But on the shortening the stay in towns to from 30 minutes to from an hour to 30 minutes, I'd be quite concerned, because from what I see, particularly in Newtown, which is our closest town, they tend to be the older people that have carried on using the parking and the shops in town rather than the supermarkets. And they, just as a physical thing, tend to move slower. And I think if they had to be in and out in half an hour, that wouldn't give them much time to do anything. So that was one thing. And on the other thing, and it's probably stating the obvious, and I appreciate it's an important income for the council, but the town centres just seem to be dying, really. And charity shops and booking shops and a few cafes are not really the stuff that thriving towns are made of. And I think whilst all those supermarkets are offering free parking, the more charges and stuff that are imposed and the more difficult it is and the more barriers for people to park, the less they're going to bother using the town centres at all. And in the long term, whilst pushing prices up might mean that the short-term income goes up, in the long term, as more and more businesses close and desert the towns, the rates and everything else are going to go. So it's going to be less of an income. So it's kind of a double whammy. I think it's more of an observation, and I'm sure you all feel that anyway, maybe. But I haven't heard one person say, "Oh, let's put all the charges up and not have free parking for Christmas." I think the least you could do is have free parking on Saturdays up to Christmas. It just seems dreadful, really. And like has been said, if 40, 50 grand's been blown on the report, maybe that would have been spent better towards subsidising the parking a bit.
Thank you, John. Councillor Jackie. You're on mute. Sorry, Jackie.
I know, I couldn't find my cursor. It disappeared. I don't mind hanging on to the end, Angela, if Councillor Peter wants to answer his question, because I sort of just got a few things that I wanted to sum up on.
Okay, lovely. Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Really, it's just on the enforcement officer situation of the two new ones to be put in place. Was there an investigation in electronic enforcement to the actual car parks?
That's a good point, and I think that's been sort of highlighted within the report, that the next stage is to look at a more user-friendly way of paying and enforcing. And Tony's the expert in this, but it's something to do with moving traffic offences with the use of ANPR, etc. Whether we could use that as a mechanism for car parking charges, for example. But it's part of the wider consideration as we look at the whole asset of the council's car parks.
And is there any sort of investigation price there that what has come out of the investigation or not?
There's, like I said, that will continue. I mean, I know Tony's about to roll out the car park app.
Yeah, I'd have to double check the legislation, but certainly in England, you cannot use ANPR for managing public car parks. NCP and the likes can in private car parks, but certainly in England, they can't in council-owned public car parks.
What about in Wales?
I'm not sure about
That's
Wales. There's a
That's
bit.
what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, there's Wales is a devolved, parts of transport legislation is devolved. It might be possible to do it in Wales, but we've got to balance though.
I mean, there's a car park, Tony, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but there is a car park in the Ellen Valley that uses number plate recognition
Yeah, that's what we're
for managing
talking
its
about.
car park. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So you think private companies can, but that's
Private
the water,
companies
that's the
can.
water authority. They're not a private company.
They are a private. It's a private car park.
Okay.
So there's a different. We operate car parks under the Road Traffic Regulation Act.
Okay.
And there's a highway
But you don't
authority.
know if you're allowed to.
Yeah, we don't tend to do it in Wales. So I'm not familiar with that as a solution and whether, but I do know in England it isn't possible.
Okay.
But I'd have to check on the Wales position. There's obviously costs of running that system as well. That won't be cheap as a solution for a capital outlay to start with. And then you've got the ongoing costs. Currently, I don't know whether our partnership of the Wales Penalty Processing Partnership could handle that type of enforcement method. It might mean different software and things. So there are other implications to that. Plus, we're only allowed to enforce specific things on the highway using camera. That's school keep clears where there's a traffic order in place. It's very limited, so we couldn't do it for general on-street enforcement. So we would still need the enforcement officers on street. Obviously, they still need to go into car parks to make sure the machines are working and other things like that. But it's something I think, as John mentioned, that's to look at going forward. That is an element that's will come in the future to fully investigated.
I'm just concerned that, it may be an extra cost at a later stage when we're sort of trying to sort of work it out now as the review. And I'm just a bit concerned that, are we looking at all angles at this time? As I stated, is Welsh Assembly allowing it in Wales? I don't know. So thank you for that. Anyway, bye.
Okay, thank you. Councillor John, is that a legacy hand? Yeah, you're on me. Okay. Councillor Bryan.
Hi. Well, most of my questions have started off with Councillor Breeze. He went right through it all. First of all, I've been speaking to the officers, our civil parking officers. Why haven't we altered the hours that they work? We all know it's safe to park in Builth after 3 o'clock because they go home. If we staggered their working hours, that might do it. And my other concern, I thought this review would have been very keen on, was the off-street parking, where one of these days we're going to be answering the question of why can't the emergency services get through because they're parked on double yellow lines. I think Mr. Tony knows well aware what I'm talking about. And I thought this review of 50,000 would have come up with practical common sense things, which in my day when I worked on Powys, I think this could have been solved with a few councillors and a few officers for what we wanted to achieve. I just think it is quite a lot of money, which we haven't achieved a lot. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to bring Councillor Breeze back in because I'm well aware I cut you short, Graham, but I was conscious of the time. But I think this is an important issue, and and there's clearly a lot of dissatisfaction in the room with this. So I'd like to bring you back in to finish off your points before we go to Councillor Jackie.
Oh, well, thank you, Chair. But I think I probably made all the points that I wanted. I just think that councillors haven't been listened to. Councillors aren't being listened to. The report, in many ways, as councillors have raised here today, does not reflect the findings that are inside the consultation document. And I find that the most disappointing thing, that we've spent £50,000 on a consultation, and then officers have sat down and come up with their own ideas anyway. And their ideas are based around increasing revenue for the council. We all know how important that is and how vital it is that we raise as much revenue as possible, but not surely at the detriment of our town centres, which will be absolutely devastated by this if this is allowed to continue. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to come back in.
Pleasure. Thank you, Graham. Yeah, so summing up the feeling in the room there, officers, I'm sure you can hear, there were a wide range of views in the working groups, and I think those are reflected within the report, the larger report. But I was quite disappointed by that report. There are inaccuracies in it, and there are contradictions in it. A couple of things that haven't been mentioned thus far about the options there. There was talk about workers' permits and residents' permits, and I don't think there's any sort of clarity been received there. We had a request from a resident to ask about having some sort of permit for a worker who has to travel into a town. There isn't an alternative way to travel, and the permit currently is for all car parks in Powys, and they wanted a specific site. It seems that that's causing problem. I just think you've overcomplicated. I really do think you've overcomplicated. Like Peter, I think we should be searching for IT solutions in other areas of the council. We're looking at IT, about AI, about ways in which we can maximise the use of our areas. And I do think, like other members of this group, that we're just looking at the car parks as a cash cow, and really that's just oversimplifying the matter, and it is disappointing. Trying to come up with something positive. Looking at the recommendations, I think as a group we'll have to go through them one by one, but I'm minded to agree with my members that really this does not meet the feelings in the working groups. And I think Graham has made a very, very good point there, and Chloe really has put something similar in the chat. And it was a point made very, very strongly in the working groups that each area does have its own sort of particular needs because of the makeup and the layout of the town. And by simply offering to bring back some 1 hour parking to those areas that don't have a short stay car park doesn't really resolve those issues if you've only got half a dozen, or indeed Raider's not even listed on there and we don't have a short stay car park, so why can't we have 1 hour's parking brought back in? I think there's I just don't, yeah, it misses too many tricks. I'm going to allow Councillor Jackie to come in while I think about this, and then I think we'll look at those recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I know I've been listening, and I know officers have been listening this morning to all the issues that you've raised. And believe me, we have gone round those issues around and around and around and again. We do have a big issue here. I just wanted to say as well, just to reiterate what Matt Perry said right at the beginning of this presentation. This is the starting point. It's never easy going to do a car park review. You can ask any local authority across the whole of Wales, probably the whole of England as well, whether they want to do a car park review. All of them will probably resist it because it is a very, very controversial area for all kinds of reasons. But we do have to have a balance here. And I think the balance, as much as we can, has been achieved as a starting point. And I keep coming back to that. This is a starting point. This has raised an awful lot of issues within the the Atkins Realtic report as well. And I just wanted to say as well, that report is still live. we're still using it, and officers will continue to come back to that report to keep on seeing what we can do to make improvements wherever we can. And that's really important to me, is that we do make those improvements. I just want to bring you back to the report to 4.7. The Director of Corporate Services, the Section 151 officer, has made it very clear in her suggestions there, or in her comments there, that we had to have a balance. We had to balance the budget. We can't get away from that. We can't steer ourselves away from that. We have to achieve that. This report does achieve that. We couldn't before. We thought we might be able to go to the risk budget. We were told we couldn't. There were lots of things that we couldn't do that we thought when we started out on this process that we might be able to do. We haven't been able to do it. So that's one of the reasons why this has taken such a long time. We've revisited, we've gone back, we've tried to deliver on the issues that the working group came up with. We failed every time, every attempt that we made. So this report hasn't come to you as the perfect report. It's not the report that we wanted to bring to you. It's the report that we've had to bring to you. But I will just reiterate, as I said before, this is a starting point. We will be coming out to our local communities through town and community councils as well, mainly town councils, because that's where the car parks are, but the community councils use those car parks as well. So we want to go back to them and ask them what it is they want to see. And there are some communities who wanted the short stay to come back. There are some communities who've already said to us that they want to go from 1 hour on-street parking to 30 minutes, or make some changes that is relevant to their communities. So we are going to do that. We are going to look at the greener issues around this as well, because we know there's a lot of things that we can be doing. We are going to be looking at those free car parks, which are actually based in particular areas where we know that actually that asset is not bringing the I hate to say it, because you're saying we're making this a cash cow. We're not making it a cash cow. The assets are out there for the local authority to use for the benefit of residents. That doesn't mean to say that we just keep on issuing free or having free car parks in certain communities and not having them elsewhere. We've got to review them all. We've also got to review the fact that there are people who use our buses and do not get any benefit from our car parks. So the council tax money that's coming in from them is of no benefit to them at all if they're using public transport and not getting any benefits. There's lots and lots of other issues here which I think we need to look at. We've tried the best way that we possibly can to achieve something that responds to what the working group asked for. We've tried as best as we can to make it balance, and I think that's what we've achieved. It's not perfect, but we've still got a long way to go. So I did want to just make those points, but we totally understand everything that everybody's been saying here. It's the things that we've had conversations about over the last 12 months. So you're not being ignored. It's just we're unable to do everything that we would want to do. So thanks, Councillor Angela, for letting me say that, but I accept the criticism. I know the officers are accepting the criticisms, but we've just got to take that criticism and see what we can do.
Just one point to raise from what you've said there. Thank you, Councillor Jackie. So the council taxpayer who uses the bus, let's be clear, the council tax doesn't support car parking. Car parking, as we just already heard, supports the council.
It does. And I think
so the council taxpayer is not funding the car parks.
No, but the council taxpayer comes to me constantly and saying, why am I paying my council tax? So I think it's just
that's
a criticism.
little disingenuous.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's a bit disingenuous, because the car user, the car park user, is very definitely supporting the council. Councillor Carl.
Thank you, Chair. You just made my point for me, really. That was what I was going to come up with. Councillor Jackie, I don't envy your position at all. It's very difficult to balance everything. It's car parks. I remember when we were in coalition with independents, car parks are always a problem. But I see that I got the feeling that whoever's in charge, I feel that we're going to be going down the route of town councils becoming more and more involved with our car parks in the centre of towns, and I can see this as I alluded to before, being added to the precept of towns, because obviously residents want that facility at Christmas to have free car parking on a Saturday. It's crucial. It's absolutely crucial to town centres, to shops, these independent shops, that people have that footfall. It ties them through the new year into the spring break, and parts of the rest of the year as well for some. So I can see town councils being more and more involved. So thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Jackie.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rafe.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the portfolio holder for that summary. But I must respectfully disagree, because this proposal, the recommendations by the officers, they don't balance this budget of the 127,000 under deficit of the car parking budget. It does far more than that. It raises an additional £402,000, and ultimately that money is going to be paid for by our residents. And so I appreciate the challenge here, but the reasons given to justify this, unfortunately, I don't see that they correspond to this proposal at all. This is effectively just increasing the charges of the car parks significantly, which is going to raise significant additional income. But as I've just said, that will be paid for by the residents of Powys, and I don't think that's correct. If this was about balancing the budget, it would be about balancing the 127,000 deficit that exists. But this does far more than that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, so where do we go from here? If we go on to item 10, so we're on page 161, the recommendations. 10.1 is asking us to accept the recommendations from officers to Cabinet. So I'm going to read them individually and see if we can get some consensus of opinion here. So the first one is leave the car parking charges as is, with the exception of introducing a 1 hour parking tariff to those long stay car parks in the towns that don't have a short stay. Now it lists the towns: Builth Wells, Crickhowell, Llanidloes, Machynlleth, Prestine and Ystrad. I would like to add in there that Rhayader doesn't have a short stay car park, and I wonder why they've been left out. So what are our thoughts on that? Does this go some way to meeting the requirements of the working group, Councillor Gary?
My direct answer personally at this point would be no, don't support the recommendation, but I wonder, are we able to offer an alternative recommendation which goes back more in line with what the working group was as a scrutiny group, or are we only able to say these are our comments on the recommendations in front of us? So that's a bit of a process question.
We can do either or. What Cabinet choose to do with that information is then up to them. So yes.
Because my counter
do you have an alternative proposal?
Well, would be across all of the current long stay car parks, all of them, as the initial report said. I suppose that would be my counter recommendation. But sorry, jumped in then on your point really of trying to get an answer on the first one.
Well, I think, is there consensus in the room that you're unhappy with that comment, that first recommendation? Yes. Okay. So is the consensus in the room to go with Gary's suggestion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Right. There we are. Councillor Carl, did you want to make any further comment?
I was just going to second Councillor Gary's recommendation.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we'll put that forward as our recommendation. The second one, increased tariff for 2 to 4 hour parking to £3.80 and all day parking to £5 in accordance with the traffic orders. Now, these will be the figures that officers have calculated that by bringing in point 1, this would cover point 2. So I guess it's kind of irrelevant, because if we're putting forward a different proposal, then this wouldn't balance the books anyway. However, I want to repeat what I said earlier on, that I don't accept the calculations. They are merely estimated calculations, because we do not have the figures. We're not absolutely sure, because of all the reasons you've given, the variations due to weather, to events that are going on globally or locally, etc. We can never definitely say that on a Monday 20 people park and on a Tuesday 31 people park, because it varies too much. So all of the figures provided are guesstimates, aren't they? So what do we feel about this? No comment because it's irrelevant if we're making a counter recommendation? Would you agree? Anybody got anything other different to say?
I guess the fear with me is, and we've seen it out in the social media world, the comms has gone out about this review and it's not very pleasant depending on where you look. And the communities are basically saying, look, you're lowering the charges here, but you're extending it here. So where's our benefit? And I do have concerns over that because I see it as a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to saying it doesn't balance in the book. So therefore we've got to find it somewhere else without that full investigations into the impacts and stuff. Are people just going to create more on-street parking issues? Are we going to get more people just not paying for tickets, so we lose that £3 we would have got, less the £4, etc., etc.? So I'm just not quite convinced I've got enough faith in devil in the detail, if you like, to make a recommendation. So personally, I would probably just abstain or not give a comment, I think.
Yeah. Now, with regard to the next one, what we're saying is there needs to be a review to assess and introduce. But I think there needs to be a review to assess if we need to introduce charging in off-street car parks in Powys where currently there's no charging structure. So I would support that. We do need to know, are we missing out on some income in places, or would there be negative impacts from that? So would you agree, committee, that there does need to be more information on this? Yeah. Okay, so we're happy with that one. And the next one, to review, assess and introduce amendments to car parking permits so that they become a single car park only at the current price. But the issue I have with that is that the communication we've had from residents says that the current price is too high. And they were hoping that they could have a car park specific permit at a lower rate. So whilst in practice, I agree with this, that we have a more option of different types of permits. What do you think? Councillor Rafe?
Yeah, Chair, this is just a process question, really. So if we support a recommendation that says review, assess and introduce, are we therefore supporting the introduction of that without having any oversight as to what that could be? Or would it be more wise to amend that to say review, assess and propose?
Yes, I would support that.
Possibly
yes.
that could apply to the last two we just discussed. I'm just conscious here that because we're also involved in this now, let's continue to be involved so that we have a say in how this goes.
Totally agree that if there are to be further reviews of the areas of car parking, that I would wish those reviews to come back to scrutiny.
Absolutely.
And the final one, I personally am against, that we put a blanket stop to any option of free car parking for events such as Christmas. And I've got the feeling from the room that you all agree with that as well. Councillor Gary, do you want to come in again there?
Yeah, I was going to come in on the previous one, on the permits one. Again, personally, I'm certainly not in favour of basically we're charging the same fee, offering a huge reduction in what they get for their fee. I would have preferred to have seen it the other way around, introduce a single car park permit option at the right price, not penalise those that pay nearly £400 a year already. Because if I had a £400 permit and I drove to Brecon to go shopping for a day, I feel quite aggrieved to spend another £5 now on top of that in terms of parking fees. So I just think we're going to force more people not to take up the permit role. And the implications from there knock on everywhere, don't they? So I just don't think, again, that one's been thought out rationally. So I'd either recommend that we keep it as is and introduce a lower fee for a single permit one, that's got budget implications, or we don't recommend it.
Okay, so in summing up, I think this committee does not agree with the recommendations of this report. That our overarching recommendation is that the 1 hour parking tariff is brought back across all car parks in Powys, and that on all the other recommendations, we want to see further reviews and further information before any decision can be made. Councillor Graham, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Are we able to add something there? Are we able to add one of our councillors, I can't remember who it was now, previous comments about investigating all new technology available to make cost-effective changes to our systems?
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Graham. I really do think that AI and IT solutions are there, and clearly recognise there is a cost to those, but it's not been looked into. So I think what we're saying is that we're very, very disappointed how long this review has taken. We're very disappointed with the quality of the review document, but we don't think that it's answered the questions that it's set out to. So shall we leave it there? Has anybody got any further questions? Has anybody who's not had a chance to speak got any further comment to add? And I appreciate we've gone well over time, but I think this is so important that we need to make sure. Okay, I've got silence. So
wait a minute, can I ask, will they be using consultants to do the next phase?
I think in the report, Councillor Bryan, it made reference to the service picking it up rather than consultants.
Okay.
Yeah, agree with John on that. Yeah,
I would support that, John. I think the knowledge is in the room. I think the authority have the knowledge, they have the information, and I think you're probably best placed to do that. Okay, I'm going to bring this meeting to an end. Very disappointing, but there we go. I thank you all for your contributions. Thank you all very much. I thank officers for attending and listening to our comments, and good luck taking those away and transferring them. I do mirror the views that are said here. We all recognise it is very difficult. There's no doubt about that. We do recognise the challenge, and we do recognise the financial challenge that the council is under, but we do not feel as a committee that this report and these recommendations fit the bill. Okay.